Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of the Township of Portsmouth, June 18th, 2025. We'll start with roll call. Councillor Goida?
Present.
Councillor Spoulos? Present. Councillor Bailey? Councillor Hurst? Present. We begin our moment of reflection. Concludes our moment of reflection. I have the resolution for the confirmation of the agenda, please.
That council approves the June 18th, 2025 agenda and addendum is circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.2, questions received from council seeking additional information, and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
Notified, Councillor Hurst, Councillor Spoulos, any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. There's questions and comments in there on WD.
It may be okay to receive them, maybe just make the note you're receiving them, just like the information.
Okay. All right, I believe we're moving to 9.33. Yes, come on, servicing.
I think we're up first with G, so Andrea Reed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? Sorry, come on down.
Yeah.
I missed a step.
Yes, I do. Item 6.13 and item 14.1. 6.13 is personally profile for June, and 14.1 is the closed section advisory report regarding land use control. For item 6.13, it is regarding a business owned by a family member, and item 14.1. Land use controls could impact the value of the property owned by a family member, so I am not able to participate in either discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Goida. I forgot to fill mine out. 711.
Yes, so the specific interest delegation, 7.1.1.
I also have a conflict of interest on item 9.4.1 and 7.1.1. And the general nature of that is my property abuts the proposed development. Fill that out later. Thank you, Councillor Goida. All right, now we're on to 9.
Okay, so I'm here about Mini Lake's annual reports for last year for the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant. I assume everyone do we all read these in advance? I get do you want me to give a bit of a summary?
Yes.
Yeah,
Please.
okay. So on the water side of things, everything is within compliance. It usually is. No concerns were really brought up, which is very good because it's drinking water. So nothing really to say on that one, on that side of things. There is the ongoing, we keep leaving a recommendation at the back somewhere about the emergency standby power and upgrading the fire protection system, include fire hydrants and sufficient storage. And these have been sort of on our little recommendation list since I think 2017, 2018. I don't think they're moving forward on that. So it's just something that's sort of still out there. Both would be a good idea, but I suppose if they don't want to move forward on that, then I don't believe the township can make them, or I think we would have done by now. So that's just the two little things. But other than that, Aqua does seem to be keeping up with all the required maintenance and replacements on the water side of things. So no real concerns from us there. On the wastewater side of things. A lot of the ongoing issues that we've had for many years were still ongoing in 2024. They were out of compliance for total phosphorus and nitrates. Sorry, not for nitrates. Total suspended solids. They managed to stay in compliance for CBOD5, carbonaceous biological oxygen remand, and for the nitrates. But the nitrate system is not actually working well, even though they managed to stay in compliance. There are some quite significant issues with how that process is working. They had one of the treatment trains out for quite a portion of the year, earlier in the year, then they fixed the gearbox and then it broke again. We did receive confirmation that it is, well, as of this was April, it was functioning again. So quite a lot of concerns in the 2024 report, but then we received this response letter, and this was quite reassuring. They said that both RBC trains were reinstated in March 2025. They do have the portable treatment facility on site, and they received the ECA for that in March 2025. I'm not sure what the plan is with that. I don't know if it's just backup in case the treatment train goes down again, or if they are going to start using them together. That would be
I can
perhaps
help
an
you with that.
okay.
They need the temporary treatment plant in place in the ECA so that then they can facilitate replacement of their treatment system.
Oh, in the future, right,
So they
okay.
did that's
So they've got that in place, so that's really good. Yeah, that's great. And then in terms of the design of the new treatment system had stalled for about 3 years. I think we saw 30% drawings from Associated at least 3 years ago, and then nothing. But then they did send this updated schedule, which says that they'd kick things off again in April. And they were aiming to have 30% design again so actually 30% by later in April, and then detailed design in late June. So they should be almost at 60% by now. It'd be really great to have an update on that.
If you're online with it.
Oh, yep. Hoping that's moving smoothly.
Sonia, Sarah, Sonia, and Jose? Correct.
Hi,
Oh,
so
or-
I am Sonia from the Ontario Clean Water Agency. I'm the project manager for the capital projects that are going on. So we are proceeding. So just to clarify, our portable treatment unit, we are now switching, now that we have the ECA, it is being used for treatment. So hopefully we'll start seeing with all of the testing going on that things are improving. We'll be using that until the new systems come into play. We're scheduled to submit ECA applications to the ministry end of August for the treatment plant and also for the tile beds. Both will be going in. And at that point, we've got in the schedule, we've allowed a year for ECA approvals just because we're finding they're taking a really long time, even to get the ECA approval for the portable treatment unit, which is pretty basic, took us 8 months. So we're expecting construction to finish in, hang on, I have notes here, 2028 for the treatment plant, but we've got the portable treatment plant now in operation until then. So we think we're on top of it. If the RBC fails, we're not using it. So we're all good.
Something else that you were, the designing, where.
Oh, the design, yeah. So the design, we took a little sidestep for a minute just because we thought there might be a less expensive solution and would only require single phase power. So they kind of looked into that for a while, and in the end, it was decided that the 3-phase power solution was better. Mini Lakes has been working on getting the 3-phase power in. It's been approved by Hydro One, so they are currently in the installation phase. So that'll be in place by the time we're ready to put the MABR plant in. We're also hoping to use it. Right now, we're running off a generator for the portable treatment unit, so we're hoping to use it for the portable treatment unit to save some money on diesel costs as well. So, I've got Jose seems to be talking over. Jose, do you have something to add?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't know why this is just triggered. I've been listening here. I don't know what to do. I'm not doing nothing, just to speak.
I can interrupt. I don't know if you two are sitting beside each other, but we have a
We're
big
not.
time echo.
No worries.
No, we're
He's in
not.
Petawawa at the moment, and I'm in Burlington, so that's very interesting.
If one of you could mute while the other's talking, maybe that'll help make it clear.
I'm muting myself.
Okay, thanks, Jose. So yeah, so the design is ongoing. We should be, I think, I closed my schedule. We need at least 60% to get to the ECA application, so that'll be August. I know their process
so-
design is advanced, but everybody else has to catch up.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so then, I mean, and then they mentioned how they're trying to move forward with the tile bed replacement. That does involve a new access road apparently, but that is, and a dewatering permit to take water for dewatering. But apparently that's moving well now. And then Aqua just gave some responses here, in response to some of the issues with the nitrification, denitrification, but if the portable treatment is now being used, then hopefully those concerns will be eliminated. So I think that covers most of it. So yeah, I think we're moving in a good direction. It's obviously going to take a little bit, quite a significant amount of time to get the new plant online. But it just sounds like Okra are doing what they can to keep things moving at the moment, so that's good.
Good.
Perhaps we could just ask for regular updates, like it'd be nice not to have to wait till next year to see a new report, so if we could perhaps get some, I don't know if we can go back to, we have sometimes in the past had quarterly updates, that might be quite nice for this year and next year, just to keep on top of how things are moving along.
Good.
But yeah.
I
see Jose's hand up.
Hi, good morning. This is Jose here. Yeah, thanks for your question. It's actually a good recommendation. Just I want to let you know that we are still producing these quarterly reports, and it's been sent to Mini Lake. So I think that may be something readily available to be provided.
Okay, so they're just maybe not making it to us yet.
Yeah, but
Okay, well, we can
they're being prepared.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, that would be helpful. Just, I know things keep changing over there, right? So especially on the wastewater side of things, so it's good to keep up to date.
Do either Jose or Sonia have any comments as to the reasoning why not to upgrade the fail safes, I'll call them, on the water side of things? So it was backup generator, what were simply
And just the fire protection system, like putting in hydrants.
like through the whole facility?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking significant
Cost,
work and
Mhm.
significant cost.
So maybe more focused on the backup power. Sounds like you have generators there for the temporary treatment plant. You're bringing in three
Mhm.
phase. Maybe speak to that for me, please.
It's Jose here. This specific topic was brought up a few years back, if I remember properly, around 17, 18, 2018. For some reason, this was put momentarily on the side. I think it's best to revisit this with the condominium association and the board, just to see what is the feasibility and likelihood of this particular project be brought back into the big picture right now. I think in their defense, all the effort and all the resources that they have been put towards the upgrading the wastewater treatment facility, which has been a very complicated and a very crucial element that have been always on the hot seat, on the hot spot. So I mean, just to remind everybody, this is a small base kind of people that they cover their own costs. They are not funded or anything, so it may be a little bit harder just to have access to resources on a timely basis, right? So, but I think it's a good opportunity just to bring them back to the board and see if we can get a more firm answer from them on where they sit on that particular topic.
Great, thank you for that.
And just to add to what Jose is saying, because he's mainly talking generators that have been discussed several times with the membership and voted on. With putting fire hydrants in and fire flow protection, that's going to involve a lot of piping upgrades, and they're sitting on a water table. So any kind of construction they're doing underground, plus their utilities, their underground utilities are all over the place. When we locate them and a contractor goes to dig, we're doing a road and drainage project right now. We have to go in with a vac truck because there's stuff under there that is not on any drawing. So between pumping out water, doing underground locates, anything that involves piping is going to be incredibly expensive. So right now the money is going towards, as Jose said, towards the treatment plant.
Thank you for your recommendation.
So that report EDM 2025-025 entitled the reporting in from council direction update be received. The council direct staff to withdraw the township's objections to the ERO posting 2025-0235 and 2025-0476. And that council direct staff will submit the comments attached to Schedule A to this report either as presented or amended as the township's comments for the ERO posting 0250476, and the council requests that Mini Lakes provide quarterly monitoring updates to the township for review.
All right, may I move for that, please? Councillor Hurst, Mr. Spillis? Questions or comments? Councillor Hogan?
Just a question, with respect to the MOECP approvals, is there anything that the township could do to try to accelerate it? Would that help if we sent a letter into it that?
Oh, it might not harm. Yeah, I don't know too much about expediting ECAs, but I mean, I can look into that for sure. It would be good if we could expedite it, wouldn't it?
One perhaps Jose has.
Yeah,
opinion?
Is that a legacy hand up, Jose, or?
Sorry, I missed the question again. If you do apologize, could you repeat it?
But is there anything the township could do to help with the cause of having the MOECP review and rather than taking a year, it's shorten the time frame it takes to review your documentation?
That's a very good question, actually, and I'm afraid I might not have the full answer to this. Again, I do not know what the relationship of the township of Bushland may have with the Ministry of Environment. I'm assuming that is a good one and it's a good standing. I think that any effort that can be made towards expediting this process is always good, no matter where it comes from. We are in constant communication with the regional office and through also with the association and the board, with ACO as well, trying to expedite as much as possible. But there is a reality, the Ministry of Environment has a limited group of individual professionals that are in charge of reviewing those applications, and they're handling all the applications within the province of Ontario. Not always things are done expeditiously as we want, but I think right now, if you ask me, and I give you an honest opinion, is we can always try pushing and pushing until we get there. Again, it's something that is relatively out of everybody's hands in this forum at the moment. That's what I would say.
Did you have a concern of we put a letter together?
So if you, Mr. Chair, no concerns, it was something that was brought up during our Queens Park Advocacy Day by all the member municipalities, that there was a need for these to be done a little bit more efficiently and processed. So I think it aligns with what.
I can draft a letter if you like, if you want it to come from me. I don't have to do that.
So it's a motion that staff and a letter to the MOECP encouraging them to accelerate the review process from my year to. Short.
I think it's a great initiative, and I think it will yield some results. I'm positive of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sirs?
No questions per se. I think if I go back a couple of years ago where things were in this particular situation, I think it's very encouraging to see some positive movement on 2028.
That'd be so nice when we get to the point where we get a report that it just check each year. Yeah, be good for them too, I think.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the amended. Yeah.
They've amended it to include that evidence. Yeah, thank you.
Good, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I believe this is the one that I'm. I will hand over the. You literally want the gavel out of the drawer?
No, I don't.
You sure? You might need it. Okay, I will vacate, you guys can find me. over
Welcome.
Good morning.
See you, Jim.
We will bring, so through you, Madam Chair, we will bring on our planners when we do the report afterwards. Is that what you think? Okay,
Yeah.
they're online virtually both. Okay.
Sure. Thanks. Good morning, council, staff and members of the public here. So I'd like to thank staff first for their detailed report and recommendation for approval. I'd also like to thank township staff, consultants for working with us over the past 3 years to ensure this development proposal can be adequately serviced, well protected, and have no negative impacts on the environment, and is providing a community benefit by way of increased housing opportunities in Morriston and by reconstruction of Ox Street, which, you know, the intent is that it benefits the current residents as well that are experiencing that intersection currently. So we look forward to council's decision today. But we would ask council reconsider the requirement for a public meeting prior to execution of the subdivision agreement. And rather have the applicant team provide a package to residents that they can review kind of on their time, and that we would provide all the project team's contact information so that they can reach out to the project team, speak to perhaps either the engineer, the ecologist, or transportation engineer on their schedule. We find council meetings, they're a great opportunity to consult with the public, but are generally a bit more formal. So it would be great to have a different kind of engagement process for the detailed design process. And we would make ourselves available through council or staff to the public and can provide them any documentation that they would like. Thank you, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Yeah, you mentioned, you'd rather not have a public meeting. What's your concern specifically with a public meeting? Because that's the opportunity where you can get, all the residents together in one room. And, as you know, there's synergy, one person comes up with something, and one person comes up with something. And it's sort of a snowball, rather than you attack them individually, you may not get the entire picture.
Sure. Yeah, I think perhaps there's pros and cons maybe to each process. With the detailed design process, much of the design is based on township standards. So with a meeting like that, I wouldn't want to have kind of false hope for the public that there's certain things we can change, because everything will be designed based on township standards. So although that we could take their comments back, it may not be reflected in any updates. So that's really the reasoning for more kind of one-on-one interaction with them. So we can explain certain components of it, have drawings, you know, work with them kind of one-on-one as needed, and have the appropriate team members available.
This question you, in terms of a public meeting, does it have to be as formal? Can not just have a bunch of consultants in the room dealing with their specific issue and like a walk around board and saying, okay, this is it type of thing? Is that a possibility?
So to you, Madam Chair, that's what we have done in the past. You'll recall with some of our more comprehensive studies and even some of our development applications in the past, we've had sort of that informal open house versus a statutory, like versus what a statutory public
Sure.
meeting would look like. So we've done that in the past.
So that's an option. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I was the same headspace as Councillor Sepoulos around an open house. I thought maybe the forum is less formal. It allows some images to be shown, you know, walk through the process, and as opposed to kind of the formal nature of that public consultation. I'm curious if that's something you would be open to doing as maybe a hybrid approach, as opposed to the formal settings that we've gone down previously.
Sure, I think that's definitely something we would be open to. I think perhaps maybe the language around public meeting, because at that stage, there's no more really decisions but by council, you know, unfortunately, that's just how the process unfolds. So I'm not sure if identifying as a public meeting assumes there's some sort of decision that's being made. But I think rather more of an information session showing where we're at, are explaining the process to them, explaining the design, would perhaps be more appropriate.
That's all the questions I had, but that would maybe be, I could see support for that. As opposed to, I'm hesitant of going directly to each individual resident. because that just gets confusing for people and there's this air of like non-sharing of information, and I don't mean it being negative in any which way to yourself or the people you're working with. I feel like having it in a more public nature, not maybe the right use of public, but would probably be beneficial just to address those type of concerns. I'll leave my comments there.
Okay, I would agree with the, I think we call them public information centers, because the thing, well, maybe the language would be more appropriate or something like that. We've done them in the past, where there's, it- sort of like visuals on easels and things, so that, we've had a lot of resident feedback, and there have been a lot of technical concerns that they would like to see addressed, and I think that public engagement piece and allowing them to visually see what's being planned and having the consultants there to address the questions is going to make for a much more supported applications. Other than that, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll need a resolution.
Chance to receive the delegation for information.
Can I give them the floor to secretary? Councilors, subsequent, all in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Okay, and so now, we are moving on to, 9.4.1, which is the, WD Main Street zoning bylaw amendment, and, we have someone presenting.
So through Madam Chair, we have our two planning staff, so Jeremy Tran and Jesse Ospitz, and then we also have our traffic engineer, Julia Salvini here, so I'll bring them all over. They're all participating online. Or if perhaps Jesse or Jeremy want to start by giving an overview.
Jesse, are you there?
Yes. Sorry, we're both in the same room. Could you hear us? Okay. I'm gonna have Jeremy go over, give a really quick overview. I mean, but I think like at this point we'll probably take mostly focus on questions and answers. I'm just trying to see how to. I'm trying to turn the camera on, but it's not letting me. Oh, okay. Yeah, so. Did you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hi, good morning, very good morning to the mayor and council members. My name is Jeremy Tran. I'm the planning consultant with MPG Planning Solutions. Jesse is here with me. So just a very brief overview of where we're at today. So the applicant has submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application to facilitate a subdivision plan. The subdivision application is submitted to the County of Wellington. Today, we are recommending to the council to approve the zoning bylaw amendment application along with the draft zoning bylaw that we have prepared and recommended. Another recommendation would be for the council to recommend to the County of Wellington to approve the draft plan of subdivision along with the conditions that have been submitted in the addendum letter that we prepare. And then, as Jesse's mentioned, we would be more happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Jeremy, I think that there was some amendments that were made just in the last couple of days around the revised sort of letter of credit. That's what we were requesting and some revised septic system permissions. I'm just wondering if you can just highlight what those amendments were in the last couple of days.
Yes, certainly, for sure. To the mayor, I'm just gonna open up the amendments that we did very quickly. So after the original recommendation report has been drafted, we did have further discussion with the applicants along with the township various consultant engineering hydrogeologists, and we have updated some of the conditions of the draft and approval. So in the addendum letter that we have prepared, there are two changes that we have highlighted. The first one is with respect to the actual draft plan of subdivision, the applicant made one editorial change to remove the reference to pipe waters to the development. They have corrected that to say private services. So we have included that in the addendum letter. And the second big change would be with respect to the conditions. So we have recommended some changes to the conditions. I'm going to go over them briefly now. So the first one that we dealt with is the requirement that all of the lots, all of the septic system have to be advanced tertiary treatment. And upon talking to the township hydrogeologist, we agree that the condition could be modified to say that lots 1 and lot 12 may be permitted to have standard treatment, subject to an updated hydrogeological report to be done at the detailed design stage, because these two lots are larger than the other typical lots in the subdivision. So there's potential for them to have standard treatment system, but that is subject to a future report. The second condition is number 20C. So this one with respect to the lot grading and drainage plan. My understanding is the reference is being changed to reflect that the wells is not going to be, not each of the residential lot would have a monitoring well. So the correction, the modification to the condition is more accurately reflecting the proposal. Number 29. So the conditions this condition is with respect to the public meeting that would have to be scheduled to discuss the redesign of Back Street, Oak Street. And there is a reference in there about the updated draft plan of subdivision should include the sidelight distances for the proposed Back Street as well as Main Street. But the draft plan of subdivision as being presented today only have one access, which is from Back Street and Oak Street. So we are in agreement with the applicant that we could remove that sentence that you have seen being crossed out. But we do add in a reference of sightline distances for Back Street and Oak Street to be reviewed as well during the redesign of Back Street and Oak Street. The next one is number 46F. So this one is with respect to potentially converting Back Street into a one-way street. So this was discussed during previous public meeting as a potential option to ensure to limit traffic onto Back Street. So because this is not confirmed that this is something that the township would want to do, so we have revised the condition to say that the applicant can submit a letter of credit in the amount that is satisfactory to the township for the works that would need to be required if we choose to convert this to a one-way street. And we do provide a minimum period of 3 years after the registration of subdivision. So within those time, if the township doesn't think that converting Back Street to one street is necessary, the letter of credit would be returned to the applicant. And the last one is with respect to a condition from Conservation Halton for the wetlands to be evaluated, for wetland water balance assessment to be carried out according to the guidelines. So we added this one in. There is already a condition number 15 by NRSI, which is a township ecologist, which already required for wetland balance assessment to be carried out. But adding number 49, the additional condition from Conservation Halton would just ensure that this the wetland water balance is carried out according to the Conservation Authority's guidelines. So those are the changes to the condition that we have included in the addendum letter.
Thank you for that. Just also, I'm not, Courtney, I'm not sure if this is maybe a question for you or Jeremy or Jesse, but I'm just wondering if you can also just sort of walk us through. So should we approve the zoning bylaw amendment today? Can you just kind of outline what the next steps along the way are to the point where the subdivision gets implemented?
So through Madam Chair, I would probably point to one of our planners to just maybe do step by step of what we can expect beyond this point.
Thanks, Courtney. To the mayor, yep, I could answer that question for sure. So if council choose to approve the zoning bylaw amendment today, and also if the council choose to recommend to the county council to approve the draft plan of subdivision, along with the list of conditions that we have recommended, the next step would be for the county's staff to bring a recommendation report to the county council, and county council would make a decision on the draft plan of subdivision. So once the county approved the draft plan of subdivision, the applicant would start the detailed design process and start fulfilling conditions. And my understanding is one of the conditions would include the redesign of Back Street and Knox Street. So a public meeting would probably follow next to discuss that redesign. And once all of the conditions are fulfilled, then the township would enter into a subdivision agreement with the applicant. Subdivision is registered, and then engineering work and site work would commence, including the reconstruction of the street, as well as construction of Street A, and building permit would follow after that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so yes, we'll go around the table.
Hey, Madam Chair, this, just a process, I've got, comments on some of the, recommendations and, you want me to go through each one of them?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so we'll start with the, staff recommendation that the county recommend to the council recommend the county of Wellington that the proposed draft subdivision application be granted draft approval, subject to township draft conditions, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to suggest that we remove this for now. I'm concerned that there may be other conditions that we haven't thought about that we may be added in. My understanding is once these go to the county, that's pretty well lit. And I have several conditions that I thought should be looked at, and I don't know if staff can do it on the fly right now. So my first thing would be is to recommend that we not proceed with this. Now, I understand the timing is still good because county council doesn't meet until September. So we can get this done before then. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carl.
Through Mr. Chair, they do break for the summer. I believe that there isn't another meeting until September. So just in terms of as Councilor Sepoulas mentioned, if there was time to work through the draft conditions, county council wouldn't be receiving those until September. Again, the time, I'm not sure, that was something that was provided to us by Mayor Seeley based on the schedule that he has access to.
The next thing is the draft zoning bylaw amendment. Question I asked, does clause 4 include the natural environment zone? And the answer I got is no, because the uses and regulations of the parent NE zone will apply. So what are the uses and regulations associated with the parent NE zone?
To the mayor, the current NE zone will permit things like conservation uses, and as well as just gonna pull up the bylaw real quick. So in addition to the conservation use, the NE zone would also permit things like agricultural use, boat house, boat dock, and a public park, subjects that no building and structure are permitted on the public park itself.
Thank you. The next question I've got, is to do with the existing fill. I've not seen any reports that talks about, the quality of the existing fill. I'm concerned that it meets the quality for a residential development. So, Courtney, I was gonna ask if that can be added as a condition.
So through you, Madam Chair, I think we did get feedback from our consultant and Jeremy, correct me, I think there was some wording that was added around that.
Yeah, Courtney, to the mayor. So we did take a look at the environmental site assessment report that the applicant has submitted as part of the application. So within this report, it's noted that the phase 1 environmental site assessment did not identify any areas of potential environmental concern at the study site, and therefore they have recommended that no additional environmental work to be carried out. They also noted that the conversion of the existing site use to residential lands is justified, and so adding any additional condition to require a study of the existing quality of the fill may be in conflict with the environmental site assessment conclusion. And however, we do have no concern that the imported fill being required to meet the requirements for residential development. So if this needs to be, if council saying that this needs to be added, we have no concern with that requirement to be added into the conditions.
So that would be my second motion to be added in. Next is the section of roadway that's unopened between Back Street and future A. My recollection is there's going to be some adjustments to the retaining wall on a property located on east side, also significant grade changes. So I was amending the conditions to include these two requirements. And Courtney, I don't know if you have a chance to type those out, and we can put them on the screen. I can talk to them.
Haven't had a chance yet, Councilor Sports.
Okay, so basically, condition 27 and 28 relate to the Ox Street. So my suggestion is to cross out the number 28 and add the paragraph associated with 28 to paragraph 27. And then add a new paragraph 28 that says that the owner agrees to complete the grading and retaining wall construction on the unopened road allowance immediately north of Road A during the construction of Back Street, and to contact the two abutting owners prior to carrying out the work, and that the design of the grading and retaining wall be reviewed and approved by the township. And then carrying on with clause 29, which talks about a public meeting, and talks about the details of Back Street redesign, and I'm adding and the unopened road allowance noted under 28. So I'm concerned that this section is of roadway is not getting the same scrutiny as the intersection associated at Cadnock and Back Street.
To the mayor, we did have a chance to review your proposed changes to the condition this morning. We have no concern with adding the references to the unopened road allowance. I think it would provide more clarity to the conditions. We did mean when we refer to Back Street, Ox Street in the list of condition, it does refer to the whole section between Street A to the Wellington Road 36. But we believe adding reference to the unopened road allowance would provide more clarity to the condition. So we have no concern with that addition at all. With respect to adding additional properties into the list of residents to be contacted, we do believe that the township already has a process where public works would have to be communicated through typically through website, through social media, and as well through mail notices through the impacted residents. So we do want to caution that this process has already been kind of captured, and there would be a public meeting to be held to discuss the redesign of the street specifically. So we just want to highlight that this has already been addressed in one way or another.
I accept what you're saying, but the fact that you pointed out 40 Bagnock Street and not these two other property owners, I think I would be remiss if I didn't follow up and have them included as well. So those are all the comments, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Councillor Sapoulis. I think, yeah, my concerns were around traffic flow, and I think from the public consultations that had been taking place, I still had some concerns, and I think those are addressed in Councillor Sapoulis's comments. I think the entryway from the county road, I was looking for some documentation on that, and making sure that the residents on the streets adjacent to the potential development are not negatively impacted to the degree that we have control over, type of thing. So I really don't have anything to add beyond, I'm in support of Councillor Sapoulis's amendments, and I'm glad that Jeremy had the opportunity to review those. I think I put a lot of weight in that to the making sure that we have traffic flow management. I don't have concerns per se with the development. I think it's more the traffic flow. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor Hurst. Yeah, I would agree in terms of the unopened road allowance that Councillor Sapoulis is speaking to. I know that it was one of the points brought up at our second public information meeting. And the property owners on either side of that unopened road allowance, not fully understanding how that would impact their grade. And I don't see that really listed anywhere in the conditions as presented. So I would be in agreement with Councillor Sapoulis to have that added. So that being said, Councillor Sapoulis, with the additional conditions being, having them open to adding those today, are you still wanting to defer the approval of the conditions until a future date?
I would be willing to listen to the rest of the council, but my gut reaction is I found these up looking through this quite quickly. I don't know if there's anything else that anybody else, I understand our consultants have done a deep dive as well. I would go by what the majority of council suggests.
Thoughts, Councillor Hurst?
Gosh, you know what, I think I'm happy with what was discussed today, but I think this is a pretty significant decision for the community, so I'd be supportive of, and maybe Courtney, looking for some guidance from your standpoint. Is this feasible to bring up at our next council meeting as a more conservative approach to just making sure that we've fully digested this? And again, my concerns are almost exclusive to the traffic flow aspect. I think the rest of the application is good, but is that procedurally manageable?
So through you, Madam Chair, I would say that the process we're talking about right now does not follow the statutory requirements of the Planning Act. So if council wants to have that discussion, I would recommend a closed session be added to today's agenda to have that discussion offline.
To do that?
Yeah, we would need to, if that's the case, but there is, the recommendation as presented on the agenda is either the draft conditions as presented or amended. So it sounds like we have an amendment that's been captured by our consultants today that sort of addresses what's been provided in the feedback by council.
Right.
So there is that option to proceed with the recommendation as amended. And then alternatively, we could have that discussion in a confidential in camera session.
So do we need to split this motion up into two about the zoning bylaw amendment and then?
Not necessarily, we could, we can, table and go into in camera if that's appropriate, but I still think the motion could proceed as one.
Okay, so the amendments don't necessarily need to be solidified right here and now. We can talk about that in closed and then come back out.
Not necessarily the conditions themselves. Yeah, we wouldn't be going into close to talk about the conditions. We'd be going into close to talk about the procedure and the process as it relates to the planning and the decisions.
So thoughts, Councillor Secoulis?
Well, I think, this is a good way, to understand the process. If we have to go on camera to understand the process, I'm good with that. Amending the conditions here, I sort of like what you're saying, is that, we can, approve the conditions subject to, whatever comes out of the closed session procedurally.
Can we do that?
I would prefer if we would table this motion for now and then address it sort of holistically when we
Okay,
come.
so we're just not gonna do this motion right now. We'll do it later on.
Sort of entire motion. Or just the, motion associated with the.
If you'd like to break it up into two, we can do that, but there's no need.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we can amend that motion and we can remove the aspects relating to the draft plan and we can deal with that later.
Since we have the Keely here for the development, maybe it would be good to at least get the zoning part done while they're still here, not have them wait till later in the day. Are you able to break that up?
Absolutely, okay. So the report PD 2025-010 entitled the zoning bylaw amendment application recommendation report for WDD Main Street. And whereas the township and its expert consultants are satisfied with the application to amend the zoning of the part lot 31 concession 8 through their comprehensive review of the submission materials. Therefore be it resolved that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment for part lot 31 concession 8 and the council gives 3 readings to bylaw 2025-065 as presented, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2018-023 as amended, being the township's zoning bylaw.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Sepoulis, Councillor Hurst, all in favor? That's carried. Right? Do we need a motion to add it to close?
We'll need a motion to go into close. I can get that heard right now, if you just bear with me. And so we will ask the gallery to step
Well,
up.
do we have to do this right away? Can we not add it to the agenda later and then come back out again?
You can, it is later in the meeting, at the end of the meeting, so we won't have a decision on that until, it's okay.
Is there an urgency?
I don't know with our folks that we have here waiting for a decision on that and our planning stuff as well. I would recommend a brief closed session and we go back in.
Okay,
Yes.
let's do a brief close. Sorry.
Okay, so the councils are going to close session under section 239 of the municipal act. And just leave it in the session. You gotta take them to the our recording device like that. Sorry. And it will be litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and it's in relation to a land use plan.
Yeah.
And so just anyone online that are not our planning staff, we are going into a confidential session briefly, probably no longer than 15 minutes. If you could just please leave the meeting and then look to come back in about 15 minutes. And I'll give our planners on the line here a heads up once we have everybody out of the meeting, but we do have still about 7 people in the attendee section online. So just a reminder, we're going into closed. You can join back in about 15 minutes.
Courtney, it's Julia. Did you want me to stay or I'm happy to either leave or stay?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely, thanks. So we're down to 3 attendees in the gallery, just looking for you guys to log off. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. The council moves into open session at 11:19 a.m.
I get a Councilor Smollett and I second our Councilor Hurst, all in favor? The resolution coming out of close?
Yes. The council receives a confidential verbal report regarding advice subject to litigation or potential litigation regarding matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and this is related to a land use planning matter. And that council recommend to the County of Wellington that the proposed draft plan of subdivision application 23T-23002 be granted draft approval, subject to the township's draft conditions of draft plan of subdivision as amended in Schedule B of this report, and that a public open house be scheduled related to the draft plan of subdivision prior to the execution of the agreement.
Okay, I get a mover. Councilor Hurst, second our Councilor Smollett. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Should we go and get near City?
Yes.
We're gonna have, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
We're back up to delegations.
Application?
We have, I think we should have a delegation, let me double check when we are. Yes, and then change presentation.
Here, you make your way down, that'd be great, I'll just get logged in here. What item number are we?
10.3.
Yeah, I'm super. Sorry, steady cards. Whenever you're ready, Karen.
Okay, so thank you for having me here today. We're here to talk about the home energy efficiency transition, or HEAT for short. It's at its core, it's a financing and support program for home energy retrofits. Advance the next slide. So the program's purpose is to accelerate the adoption of low emissions and energy conservation home retrofits, as I mentioned. And really, this is looking at improving building envelopes and increasing uptake to heat pumps. That's where we're going to get sort of the biggest bang for our buck, but there's a number of other measures that would be included in the program. And the second purpose is to address energy poverty, which is estimated right now to be about 25% in the County of Wellington. The HEAT is a multi-solve solution. So when we were developing this program, we wanted to look across the county programs to see how the HEAT program may support and advance some of the other strategic programs that the county runs. So in social housing and social services, there's an opportunity to reduce the applicants for the LEAP program, which supports paying electricity or hydro bills for those who are struggling. It can complement the Ontario Renovates program. We've had some conversations with the folks that are running that program on how we can dovetail these two programs together. And it can reduce the number of homes deciding between food and energy expenses. We know through conversations with the food bank that we're seeing more people accessing the food bank, and those folks are homeowners that have full-time jobs and are struggling. So we're hoping to reduce that struggle between food and energy expenses. Under economic development, having programs such as this can send market signals that there is a growing demand. We're supporting that growing demand. And so that industry of energy auditors, energy efficiency, construction experts, renovators, that signals to them that we are driving some of that support for that work. It also improves the quality and desirability and resiliency of our building stock. So as we invest in our homes, that resiliency will grow. Under planning, we can contribute to affordable additional units by making the operation side easier to handle and dovetailing with some of that construction. So if someone were to be applying for an additional unit, but it has energy efficiency measures inside their home, so renovating inside their home, we may be able to support some of that work. And it delays the need for expensive energy and gas network expansion as we're looking at conservation. It'll reduce demand, so we can stick with the infrastructure that we have for longer. We also run, of course, the long-term care facility, the Wellington Terrace, and some of this work may allow folks to stay in their home a little bit longer before going into long-term care. And emergency management and emergency services, improving our building stock is going to help with resiliency, and so make them more resilient to some of those extreme events. We also improve conditions under extreme events like big heat waves by introducing heat pumps that provide both heat and cool. So those who previously didn't have air conditioning could get night conditioning. We also looked at heat from a change management perspective. So I was trained in the ADKAR method of change management, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So using these as building blocks to create interest and help people come along in that change. So under awareness is really raising the awareness for folks that energy efficiency is important, what that means, how it plays with climate change, and how you can use energy efficiency to work towards improving extreme events, things like that. So what we have is online resources, and we have our website, which we're populating with information as new information comes available, new tools come available. We put that on the web. We also have workshops and webinars. And last year, County Council supported establishing an energy coach service. So this is for low income households to get them into some existing provincial programs. So that energy coach helps folks understand the energy efficiency landscape and some of the programs available to them. So under desires, so if people know what that this is an issue and energy efficiency is important, then we need to build the desire for them to make the change. So that's really explaining to them how it would benefit them. It's the what's in it for them clause. We'll be looking at creating models and calculators. But what we have existing right now is we have an energy toolkit, which County Council supported in 2023, as well as the energy coach. So this is going to help homeowners understand their energy use in their home and what they can do to improve their energy conservation. The knowledge piece is how they can do it. So what do they need to do to improve energy efficiency? So our energy coach is there. And through the HEAT program, we have the concierge service. So similar to the energy coach, they would be a service that would sort of hold the homeowner's hand through the process, educate them on what needs to be done and some of the processes. If someone is new to solar, they would understand what solar is. So that's really giving them the knowledge of how to do it. And then the ability is giving them the tools to actually do the work. And this is where the HEAT loans and grants come in. So this is the finance mechanism that allows or enables those homeowners to actually undertake those works. And of course, the energy coach is there for additional support, and the IESO and Enbridge grants that are available for income qualified folks. And then reinforcement, of course, once that change is made, we want to continue to support them. So we have under the HEAT program, a pathway to net zero plan or a climate ready plan. And that would give the homeowner a guidebook on what they can do in their home, and they can, pick and choose which actions and measures they would like to do and what they can afford to do over time. And then there's several other items there as well as the energy coach to help support homeowners in their next steps after they've kind of done their initial work. Next slide. So the HEAT program features, we have, as I mentioned, financing and incentive. We have the concierge service, which is going to provide that step-by-step support. A centralized web platform, so we will hire a third-party administrator for the program, and they will administer also this centralized web platform. The Climate Ready Pathway Plan or Pathway to Net Zero Plan would be available for applicants and promotion of low carbon resilience. So one thing we've added into this program is measures that will help people make their homes more resilient to extreme events, whether that's hurricane straps or other measures to help protect their home in a major ice storm, major flood, that sort of thing. So the loan terms, it will be an LIC financing, so a local improvement charge, or another word we've commonly heard is a PACE financing, is property assessed clean energy financing. So this is the local improvement charge is attached to the property and not the homeowner. So if the homeowner were to move, that loan can stay with the home. And it doesn't have to carry on with that homeowner. So if you're putting a $40,000 solar system on your home and 3 years later you decide to move, the loan that's going to pay for that solar system stays with the home. You don't have to continue paying for it if you to another resident. Some supportive features are flexible underwriting and up to 50% of the amount upfront. So that's going to help with folks that may be struggling with a bit of cash flow to get that capital to pay. I know some programs have, you have to put out the money first and then you get reimbursed. And so that delay could be a real struggle. We had to do that at our own house using the Canada Greener Homes. It took us over a year to get our incentive back, and that can be a real struggle for a lot of people. So we're looking at providing some upfront funding to help bridge some of that. And there'll be incentives available, particularly for those low income folks. The financing amount, there's a minimum of $10,000 for a loan and a maximum of $80,000 or 10% of the property value, whichever is less. And that really coincides with, sorry, that's the next point, attractive repayment. So the possibility of more than a 10-year term, and that is really coincides with the work that is being done and the lifespan of that work being done. So a heat pump can last 10 to 15 years, but some of the other works like insulation, doors and windows may have a longer lifespan. And so we can look at that repayment longer than 10 years so that you're paying out the full lifespan of the measure that you're doing in a penalty-free early. So we've had several consultations with municipal staff over the last few years, first in the feasibility study and then in the program design. The finance staff and the municipalities were very helpful in understanding the responsibility split between the county and the member municipalities. We'll get into that a little bit, but because this is a local improvement charge, the local improvement charge legislation sits with the member municipalities. And so we need to partner with our member municipalities in order to make this happen. So we would be using your LIC legislation to collect the loan repayments through the tax system. And then that money would go up to the county to pay off the loan that we would get from FCM. We can get into that. It's a little convoluted. Next slide, please. So the multi-stakeholder journey. There's 5 steps in the multi-stakeholder journey. First is the discovery, which is the promotion of the program itself. Second is the homeowner would come and apply to the third-party administrator for the work that that's being done. They would work with the concierge to fine-tune that work. And then the improvements would take place. So planning the project, there'd be a property owner agreement with them that lays out the terms of the loan. And of course, the homeowner would undertake those upgrades. The concierge service can help with quotes, understanding the quotes, not getting the quotes, but understanding the quotes, understanding your home as a system. And that would happen through those application improvements. process. Then the financing, so upon project completion, there would be that financing mechanism, we would record the LIC and then repayment would start. And then that last part is we've left it open that folks can come back in and apply to the program. In part, that is keeping that window open helps if we are able to expand the program or we come into some additional funding to support different measures in the program, that there's a re-entry phase, or they've worked down their pathway to net zero and climate ready plan and want to come back and do more work. So the roles and responsibilities. So I'll back up before we get into this. Wellington County is applying to Federation of Canadian Municipalities for a grant and loan to support this program. So the county would hold that loan. The member municipalities, as I mentioned, we would need your LIC legislation in order to remit the payments for the loan from the homeowner, and that would come through the tax system. So that's where that partnership comes in. And the money that the member municipalities collects goes to the county, and the county would then repay the loan. Federation of Canadian Municipalities with those funds. So the roles and responsibilities for the member municipalities include verifying participant property tax bill history, and that allows us to gauge whether an applicant is ready to take on a loan. It's a bit of a litmus test. They would approve and sign the property owner agreement, which would say these are the terms of the loan and this is how the repayment would happen. We'd record the LIC on the benefiting properties, and that would be done through bylaw. Yes, pass required bylaws and council resolutions. So there would be a bylaw saying that this is an LIC for the heat program, and then individual properties would have a bylaw for their individual LIC. They would oversee billing and collections, as I just mentioned. They'd prepare the budget and status updates for the county. So this is really to make sure that all of our accounting is matching, that we have collected and the county has paid back the appropriate amounts. Manage any delinquencies and defaults, and this is part of that LIC mechanism legislation at the member municipalities, and apply to a loan loss reserve to recover partial losses when needed. So the county will have a loan loss reserve that the member municipalities can apply to make them whole if someone defaults on their loan. These loans are they've been in other jurisdictions for a very long time, and evidence through that is that there's very few defaults on these loans. They're fairly secure, so it's unlikely that that will have a default will happen. But if in the case it does, that we do have a loan loss reserve that we can cover some of those partial losses. The budget, first table up there is just the budget to give you an idea of the cost of this program to run, but more importantly is that lower table, the town of Pleasant. So these numbers are modeled based on population across the municipalities. And so the town of Pleasant, we're modeling things after the medium category there through the middle. So modeling suggests that you would see about 7 applicants in a year. Oh, sorry, first 4 years you'd have to see about 7 applicants. Next slide, please. So next step, we did apply to FCM, and if you've had experience with FCM applications, there's a lot of back and forth before it goes to their board for approval. So we did apply at the end of March. We are working on some updates to that application. There's some stuff going on at FCM. They're recreating their funding portal, and they've changed their funding because this is the last year of funding. So we expect that application to go in July as our final application, and we will expect to hear back from FCM in September on that application. We will be putting out an RFP for a third-party administrator, as I mentioned, to host that web portal as well as the concierge service. We'll be preparing LIC bylaw templates for the municipalities. There's lots of people who have gone before us that will look to sort of best practices for that and provide member municipalities some templates for bylaws. We also need to really map out between the county and the municipalities and this third party administrator, what all of those processes look like, who gets what when and what that looks like. And of course, a compensation and agreement with the municipality to provide that LIC service to the program. We have spoken with municipal staff about compensation for that work. And we've also talked to FCM about our ability to pay our member municipalities for that service. So we will have to come together to see what that specifically will look like. And yes, and then we'll start visioning for a marketing campaign as we're leading up to that startup phase.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. All right, a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Amazing work to speak from your mind on that. With notes, so it's pretty impressive. You put a lot of effort into this. Councilor, go ahead.
And thanks very much. This is, it looks to be a really great program. I just had a couple of questions in terms of the loans. You talked about the repayment being possible longer terms. What is the interest? Are these low interest loans? Are they no interest loans? Like what is the repayment on that?
They will be low interest loans. We still have to go through, if we're successful in getting the funding from FCM, there'll be a negotiation with them on what their rate for us to borrow money from them will be, and then that rate would have to be passed on to and recuperated. So the county isn't looking for to bump that up as an interest on top of that. There will be an application fee, administration fee, however.
Okay. And if everything goes the way it should, when would you expect implementation? Like when would you expect that applications could start coming in?
So we were hoping that it would be early next year at the latest, but with this change in the FCM process, it may be later. So it may be late 2026, early 2027, realistically.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's so nice for coming in. I also going to ask the two questions I'm going to ask of you. So let's just ask the question of our CAO. What sort of processes do you see getting involved with through this? She mentioned the bylaw. I guess we'll have to pass a bylaw and have to look at it. And are there any other hiccups from your point of view?
So through Mr. Chair, staff have been engaging with a number of questions around just exactly that, around what it would look like for municipal resources that would need to be allocated to this program. I do understand there is an ability to have the county fund back and recover if there are costs associated, but there's likely to be a report to council with our bylaw when we bring this forward, just highlighting potential processes or concerns that we may have, and we'll bring it forward. But we're still in the back and forth, just talking it through with the county and with Karen.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all there is.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Good program. I guess just personally, I swapped a heat pump out probably 3 or 4 years ago, used the Enbridge program, and it's relatively smooth and painless, right? So anytime you can have similar type programs for residents is a win. Couple questions. You alluded to other municipalities' experiences, not being kind of the first one across the gate on this one. So there's always benefits of learning from other municipalities, wins as well as headaches. So I don't need to get into a deep dive today, but just at a high level, how's it been received based on your peers and other municipalities that have gone through this?
Sure. When these programs were first introduced a few years ago, they were oversubscribed out of the gate. There was a lot of interest in them. I think that has slowed down a little bit there's an economic issue that we're dealing with right now. But also there was the Canada Greener Homes program as well. So there's a number of different avenues that homeowners can take to do energy efficiency. I think it's still quite popular. the loan terms from FCM have changed over time as well. So those first out the gate had 0% interest, which was highly desirable. I was fortunate to be able to take advantage of that, but now that there has been, the financing terms have changed a little bit, where I think homeowners may be a little more hesitant to pursue. However, the interest rates that we're seeing from FCM are much lower than we're seeing. So yeah, they have been quite well received and continue to be quite well received.
Okay, good. Just a bit of clarity, and maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself on this one, but what it covers. So you alluded to heat pumps, window replacements. Some of the other programs typically are redoing insulation in the attics and their walls. You alluded to some solar. Is that most of it?
Yeah, those are likely the most popular items. We do have also the resiliency items. Like I mentioned, the hurricane straps in your roof, but there's a number of other ones. I can send a sheet of what's included in the program design.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And just maybe my last question, that was more just the fully understanding the cost to the township, in which, you know, some administrative costs to process things, bylaw pieces, but it sounds like that would be covered to a degree or mitigated as best, but here are the templates to use. So yeah, look forward to pushing this through.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Speak about the time needed for these applications. I think it's great that there's going to be a financial component to reimbursing the township, but do you have any indication of the actual time required to process an application? Because with limited staff, the finance part's great, but with all the challenges we have in our community to bill and other things, it's more the time allotted to staff to process these applications, which is where my concern is.
Yeah, so I had sent a report into staff from the city of Kingston, who have been doing this for a number of years, and they've sort of tried to calculate how much time for the entire process, not just for that LIC piece. And so I would refer back to that. I believe it was under a half an hour per application for the full process. And so I'll have to refer back to that. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, and I would assume that initially we would be longer until you get, you know, versed in dealing with them. You mentioned energy poverty. I think that this is a great program, but I also feel that in even Puslinch, our community has many different sources of energy. And we've had advocacy for natural gas expansion, and that's in areas that are likely dependent on another fossil fuel, maybe it's propane. So the cost is cheaper on natural gas. The distribution rates, I've said this to you at the county level, but the distribution rates are expensive in rural. And people may choose to go to a heat pump for other reasons, whether it's just to get off dependency of fossil fuels. But my concern is the coach, and when we're approaching these residents, whomever it may be, that they have a fulsome understanding of energy costs for that specific person. Because I was speaking to somebody recently, their parents have a heat pump and their electricity bills are upwards of $1,000 a month. And I would hate for us to promote a program that this is to save you money in layman's terms, and then their gas plus electricity bill was smaller than when they go to a heat pump, and depending on everybody's circumstance. So I guess the question is there training, or will these coaches, and how are we going to be transparent to these people that this could be a savings, or it could be an increase, but if it's a life choice to just be less dependent on fossil fuels, all that information.
So as far as energy poverty goes, what other municipalities have done is if the homeowner is on electric baseboard, a heat pump is more efficient. And so that is sort of a no-brainer to like,
Yes.
let's go to something more efficient. But if someone is really struggling with their energy bills and they're on natural gas, a heat pump may not be, it might be, but it's likely not a good solution for them. So we would be looking at conservation measures, better windows, better insulation, things like that. And we can kind of coach them on what it is that they can afford to do, but we want to look at the capital cost as well as the operational cost
Yes.
of these, particularly for folks who are of lower income, or those who I call it that precarious middle, where you may have a full-time job and you own your house, but you're really, now considering going to the food bank or going to the food bank. We want to capture what that demographic is. So we're doing some work on that right now to figure out what are those income thresholds and energy expenses. What is that formula to figure that out? So that we are making sure that those folks are taken care of.
And lastly, you mentioned that the loan stays with the home, which makes sense because it's the benefactor is the home, essentially, or whoever's living there at the time. I would assume that any potential buyer, the lawyers through some sort of search would discover said loan, and the new purchaser would have to assume that loan. I don't know if when in the process of prospective buyer would discover that. I'd hate for that to be, some reason for them to not purchase a home, especially if somebody's selling it because of financial implications or health, whatever it may be. But my question is, if that loan is in default, my understanding is there's no desire to put this through tax sale. If they're in default, it's going to be registered, but it's just to probably for the purpose of if the property sells, it's registered, it carries on. But if it does sell and it's in default, does that change that? Would that have to be cleared? Or does it, because so somebody could in perpetuity figure out the system and say, oh, well, they weren't paying for 5 years because they're just continuing to not pay it and nobody collects. And then I guess we have that program where we can apply to the county for default loans, all of those good things. But is there potential to clear the loan in a default situation on sale of property?
So this is sort of in line with some of the questions we got from staff. So we're looking into that to get back to you on the particulars of that mechanism. I think I understand that concern that, as you said, we can kind of be in that system a little bit. So we'll look at it very closely and get back to you on it.
And if you get some research on whether those disclosures are early in the process, because just want prospective buyers to be aware that it's there, and you likely be more than willing to take on that additional loan, but okay.
There's also opportunity for the homeowner to add the loan onto the price of the house and it's clear.
Yes.
Together through the sale.
Okay, well, great work, and I'm passionate about it and put a lot of effort in, so. The recommendation.
Yes, it's to receive for information.
I'll move it. Thanks, Mr. Cody. Mr. Lewis, in favor? Okay, thanks, guys. Jason, sir, next. Oh, okay.
Welcome, thank you.
Nice to see both of you. Thanks for responding to my email quickly this morning.
Not a problem.
It's on the agenda. There were some questions, so I know a guy that wrote a report.
It's true.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, no, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Jameson is with me because he did an enormous amount of the background work and the key supporting work to bring this to you today, and also our mapping team as well. So the outline for the presentation is quite simple. We're covering off a report that recently went to planning committee. It's on the next slide. And we'd like to talk a bit about the Aberfoyle expansion, which you brought up at council here several years ago, and we're finally back here today to talk about it and talk a little bit about severances. So moving into the report, starting with the context. I think you're all pretty familiar with this, but we're at phase 3 in the official plan review. And it was split into 2 parts, an urban and a rural piece, and we're now soundly in the rural piece. So this is your time. And I guess I did want to give a brief apology for how long it's taken us to get to this point. I know rural growth is what Whistler has, and unfortunately that meant you got a bit left behind for a while. And but now we're there, and we're definitely eager to continue moving forward. So you've got, excuse me, on the next slide, the Quislinch by design employment land study is nearing completion. And so we're here to talk to you today about the rural residential component. So that would be within secondary urban centers outside of the Greenbelt, so Aberfoyle, also your hamlet, Arkle, and then generally through severances in the secondary agricultural area. And unfortunately, the next series of slides deal with tabular information. This isn't normally how I like to have presentations go, but this is how some of this works. So we just wanted to give a background. So Jameson had prepared and presented a report back in September last year, and that really gave a full review of rural growth need across the county. And this is the result of that work. And next slide. The important takeaway here is that Erin had an undersupply or a shortfall of rural residential growth of about 120 units. And Quislinch had a shortfall of about 250 units. And so that's where we are and where we're going from. Moving on. So the report that we brought forward, or Jameson brought forward, asked that we seek feedback from Erin and Quislinch about how you wanted your growth to look like. And so we were happy to receive your feedback back in November. And the request from council was addressed at severances and was asking to remove the date, the severance date, and to replace it with a policy that would allow severances every 5 years. And Quislinch Council, they took a little bit longer, but we needed to hear from both of you. And their request was different. Yeah, they asked for additional residential units or secondary suites to be used to make up their shortfall, which was different from maybe what we were expecting. And they did not support any minor hamlet expansions or changes to their severance policy to the date. So then moving on, we have a brief overview of relevant planning policies, and these 2 areas are why we needed to do some additional work beyond just dealing with the severance question. The provincial and county planning policies still have this hierarchy where the importance is placed on municipally serviced urban centers. We're to limit growth in those urban centers and hamlets that don't have water and wastewater. We can still assign growth, but it's to be more limited. And then secondly, there's still a policy requirement to place a priority to directing growth in Aberfoyle and Arkle over severances. So that's why we looked at everything in combination. And the next slide outlines, we looked at 6 different options for Quislinch when we were considering those policy questions. And so one of the options is considered was to reallocate those 120 units from Erin to Quislinch. And the reason for that is detailed in the report. And I think the important thing is that Quislinch definitely has a desire to have that additional growth, and Erin Council did not. And second is an expansion of Aberfoyle by about 200 units. And again, Jameson completed a lot of background work to get us to a point where we knew that that seemed like a reasonable number. And then for Arkle, we've assigned an assumption of 50 units. And then we looked at 3 different severance options. So the one that council had requested. And we found that option results in far too many residential units, and it goes beyond what growth we have, even with the additional 120 units. We looked at moving the date to 2015, and that didn't deliver enough severances. And so then if we move it to May 1st of this year, it generally is imbalance. That would supply approximately 160 additional severances beyond what's already in the supply. And back to tabular information. This is a red line revision just showing what options 1, 2, 3, and 6 look like. And those are the options that were supported by the report from the county and also by planning committee recently. So the first slide looks at demand. The next slide highlights the changes in demand of shifting that 120 units from one municipality to the other. So that increases the growth that is required for Quislinch. The next slide shows the supply impact. So here you can see we've added that 250 unit for Arkle and Aberfoyle. And then the additional severance date being moved to 2025. And then that total supply becomes 760. And then the final slide underneath shows that once you do the math, that Erin is in balance. Quislinch has a bit of a surplus, but we would generally find that to be in balance, given that we have estimates for some of the supply, and we feel that that's a reasonable amount to have. And then in terms of next steps, so the county planning committee considered this report last Thursday. It will then go to county council on the 26th. If the recommendations in the report are approved, then staff, Jameson and myself, will start drafting those policies to address the rural residential component of that I've discussed here, and also implement the final approved rural Quislinch by design once that council has dealt with that, and then some of our work with the provincial planning statement updates. So now I'm going to move into the Aberfoyle expansion, and I know this is new material for you, and so I'm going to try to take you through this carefully, and if I'm going too fast, please let me know. So the report that planning committee has considered has set the stage for future expansions in Arkle and Aberfoyle. And so part of the work that Jameson has completed, and we have met informally with the mayor and your CAO a couple of times, just to keep them in the loop in terms of what we've been working on. We wanted to start looking at the expanded growth area that was discussed by council several years ago, looking at a much bigger area for Aberfoyle. And so I'm going to get into that. A similar exercise wasn't done for Arkle because there's a bit more of a complex policy environment there. And we feel that the analysis required to do those expansions would be better dealt with through privately initiated applications. And there will be it's 50 compared to 200. So that's why we're looking in a more detailed way at Aberfoyle. So we'll move into that map. The red outline is my understanding of the area that was previously identified by Township Council. So that goes way back, I know, but I believe what was discussed was, looking at Maltby Road to the north, Victoria Road to the east, Gilmore Road to the south, generally. And then to the west, I've taken a boundary at the midpoint between the concession lines. So immediately to the west of that boundary is the two areas G and H from the Puslinch by Design study, just to give you a bit of context there. So those haven't been included in this exercise. The next slide. And, oh, sorry, if we could back up first. We did divide it by quadrants, just to make it a little bit easier for us to have some conversations. So we used Wellington Road 34 as a split, and then also Brock Road as a divide, so that you've got A, B, C, and D shown on the map. Okay. And then the next slide goes a step further, and that's the good work that Jameson did in looking at the constraints, areas that have largely been developed, and trying to isolate those blocks of land that might have more significant potential for lot creation. So these are what we're referring to as focus areas, and these would be areas that if this all comes to fruition, might have subdivisions someday that would bring in a larger yield of new development in the residential category for the township. It doesn't mean that individual severances or other opportunities might not present themselves over time outside of those areas. It just means we're only counting these focus areas into our tabulation of what we think the lot yield might be. So it could be more. There could be individual severances that could happen, because once that boundary is expanded, the secondary agricultural lot creation policies would no longer apply. And so that would open up for multiple severances to occur on some of those properties as well. So then the next slide has the aerial photo on it. It's a little difficult to see here, but I think you all know the areas quite well. Moving into the next slide, this adds in the Greenlands and Core Greenlands designations in the county official plan, and that gives a sense of really the amount of land that is constrained with that area, and we wouldn't be counting that towards the yield that we've calculated. And this is the same way that we did the work in Center Wellington as well. We subtracted out the Core Greenlands and Greenlands, although there might be, more detailed environmental work that could happen through a subdivision application that might refine that boundary differently. And so in addition to that, of course, there are the estate residential developments and smaller lots that don't have additional development potential. So the area looks quite big, but really when you kind of isolate it down to those focus areas, it's not nearly as big as it would seem. The next slide adds in the mineral aggregate area resource overlay. That's shown in a hatched line, and it kind of flows through the southeastern corner, area D, around Mini Lakes, and it kind of flows through toward Victoria. And then there's another area in area A, and it goes into area B a little bit, which really a lot of the development has occurred there, and it has that resource has been fragmented and has natural features around it that would make it difficult for it to be extracted. So just the next slide. This is a detail of area D so that you can see it a little bit better. Excuse me, that shows the mineral aggregate resource in addition to the Greenlands and Core Greenlands. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what those constraints look like here, and I have a suggestion about how we might want to proceed. So on the next slide, starting with that focus area D1, there are 4 parcels, so that area is fragmented. There are irregular shaped parcels, and the configuration would make it a little more difficult to see a subdivision application fully realize the development potential of that land. Land assembly would likely be required, and we don't know whether there would be a willingness of those landowners to do that. And then, of course, we have the environmental constraints, and there's a licensed pit nearby on the other side of Victoria Road. And the next slide hones in on area D2, and that area is at the corner of Wellington Road 34 and Victoria Road South. And really, when you take in the Greenlands features and the mineral aggregate resource constraints, there's really nothing left. But if you just look at the environmental constraints, there would only be the ability to have some severances across the Victoria Road frontage. So that's quite limited. And then there's one more. So we're really recommending that area be removed from the study area boundary. And part of that is informed by some experience we've had with the amendment for the expansions in Center Wellington. And we have had some communication from MNR, and we're working on that with the ministry right now to do the necessary analysis to look at how to deal with the some small mineral aggregate resource areas within those expanded limits. Unfortunately, we didn't get comments from the ministry through the review of that amendment. We're just receiving them now that it's been submitted to them for their approval. So that's what we would recommend here. And let's moving to the next slide. This is just a cleaner version of that so that you can get a better sense of what that would look like in terms of a potential expanded Aberfoyle boundary. The next slide talks a little bit about process, and I know that you have budget set aside to do a rural residential piece of work. I would call this Pussonch by Design light. It would be a much more streamlined, simple, straightforward process, mainly because this is residential, it's not employment, it doesn't have the same compatibility issues. We would largely be looking to expand the boundary, but allow the individual development applications to come in and take care of all of the detailed studies. And as you well know from your discussion earlier at council today, that would be where all of those detailed, traffic, environmental, and other issues would be dealt with. And sorry, if I could back up again. Oops, yes, I neglected to mention, so within that revised boundary, there's a yield of approximately 210 units. And in the work that Jameson completed, as I've said, we didn't include severance potential. We've just included potential for these key areas. We applied some contingencies to the benefit of the township so that we've made sure that we haven't overestimated the supply. We applied a 15% reduction in the event that some landowners might not be interested in bringing forward an application. For example, A3 in the northwest corner, that's one property owner. And for example, if they chose not to come forward, then that would have an impact. So we've provided for that in the estimates that we've completed. I think that's all I needed to say about that. Thank you. We'll move on to the previous next one. Thank you. So in terms of a process, and I should start out by saying, we're offering to provide a fair bit of assistance here, but we totally respect that the township may wish to go with private consultants a private planning support, and so no issue with that here. We're just at a different point in our work plan where we do have space right now over the summer where we could offer in-kind support by policy staff, so there would be no billing for the work that we've indicated in terms of the planning policy review. We have outlined, there is a need for an MDS review similar to what has been done for Puslinch by Design, except we would like Colville Consulting to just do the minimum distance calculations. And then, and we've already retained them to do that work, knowing that there's quite an interest in the township being able to expand in all areas or to grow in their rural residential opportunities. What staff would be prepared to do is to round out the agricultural impact assessment, because all of this land is secondary agricultural. So the amount of analysis required is lower because of that. And so that's work that we would feel comfortable contributing, again, through policy staff in kind. We also know that we would need to do some kind of an aggregate resources analysis. And even after taking out that one quadrant. And that's an area that we think that we can do that work. Or if we needed a little bit of additional advice, that we would be willing to cover for that. And water resources are to be determined. We would expect that the individual developers would cover and address the policies for the Paris Galt Moraine. But we're also aware that through the Clare Maltby secondary plan, that there were some obligations that the city of Guelph had to meet, and we want to make sure that we're prepared if there's some additional work that would need to be done with that. And we do have some budget in our overall official plan review at this point in time that we feel that we can assign to that. So if you're interested in that's, we would be prepared to proceed with that and complete the work in July and August. If that seems sensible. Now onto the next slide. In terms of proposed timing, so again, July and August would be a really important time for Jameson and I to be working away at this. We would need to finish the technical work and then prepare a draft official plan amendment to implement the results for Aberfoyle and the other work that was mentioned earlier in the presentation. So it would be a larger official plan amendment, likely to include the severance date, the Puslinch by Design, Aberfoyle, and the PPS updates. Although we've left the door open to splitting it into separate amendments if that seems to make more sense. So we would intend, as we've said in the staff report, to bring a draft official plan amendment to County Planning Committee in the fall. Now, don't quote me on this, but I know I'm saying this in a public forum. My desire would be to bring that forward in September. And so I might be putting you on the spot today a little bit, and I understand that. And if you can't, if it's too soon for you to make a decision, I respect that. And in terms of ongoing consultation, there would be public and stakeholder engagement by the county that would happen as a matter of course through the review of the official plan amendment. And the township would also have an ability to comment through that process as well. And then we have the official plan website and our email subscription list, where we would also provide additional opportunities for feedback and information sharing. So the final slide in the next steps is the big ask. And I know the recommendation is to receive this all for information. What we do need from council, whether it be today or at a future council meeting, would be direction from you to proceed and endorse the process that we've set out here in terms of who would do the work and how we would proceed with it. And then also to support the adjusted study boundary that we've set out in the presentation. So that concludes the presentation, and please, I'm happy to discuss further, and you know, if it comes down to the matter of attending a future meeting, we're available for both meetings in July. And we would certainly be prepared to attend if that's what you would prefer. Thank you.
Sir, another great presentation. James, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You did the potential for severances, and that kind of flies off the tongue. Just for council's indulgence, just at a high level of what you did, because I know it was very thorough, and I'd like the public to know that this was very thought out and the way you did that.
Yep, so it was a GIS constraint analysis, is essentially what was done. Where we looked at all properties within the secondary agricultural area within Erin, Puslinch, and Minto. And we overlaid constraints, natural heritage features, and as an example, and we did an analysis where we would spit out all of the polygons that were outside of those constraints. And then there was an individual review process where we looked at those polygons. Some of them were really straight, like straggly things, or for lands that could reasonably accommodate a new dwelling in an area that makes sense for consent. So in a nutshell, that's what it was. Times like 200 or 300 times was the work that was done to kind of go through that and get a pretty good handle on what could happen if there.
Yeah, the potential. I know you did a lot of work on it, just ready for it. So thank you for that. Okay, Councilor Goyder.
Yeah, that is an enormous amount of information.
We're ready now.
I guess just to start on the severance piece of it, I just, you know, that is a really long, that has been going, that conversation has been going on. I think we were talking about that in my very first week in the council, which was 7 years ago, so. I really appreciate all of the work that went into that. All of that you sought our feedback, that you listened and found creative ways to make that eventually happen. And I think just that in itself, in combination with the Puslinch by design that we have, not Puslinch Design Light, but the Puslinch design has already really set the township up for a really, you know, successful future. And so, you know, it's a really important thing for this town. So I just want to say, you know, a huge, tremendous amount of thanks for getting us to that point. In terms of the Aberfoyle boundary expansion, this is a lot of new information coming to us just today. I guess my question would be, maybe from our CAO, if we wanted to proceed, the timelines are quite tight. Do you see, what would you suggest in terms of our approach to that?
So if you, Mr. Chair, we've had these discussions offline. I do think that this collaborative approach with the county makes just a lot of good sense. I think it's very practical with what we're doing and how it can sort of dovetail in with our employment land study and the changes that are already made. So I think what's presented in this presentation makes a lot of sense.
And is there any, do you have any hesitations about endorsing that today? Should that come back to council? Do you have any preference on that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I know that this was new information with the adjusted Aberfoyle boundary, but it has been on council's radar and endorsed previously at a previous council meeting. So I think while it feels like maybe we're getting some new information, I think this has been an initiative that council has really endorsed for quite some time, as you noted. And I think the adjustments to the boundary also have been well thought out. And so I don't have any concerns with proceeding today. And I do have a draft motion when council's ready to suggest that.
She's maybe asking about any concerns around cooperating with, giving them direction to go ahead to work through July and August to come back for September. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
So through Mr. Chair, I would support those timelines. I think again, when we're looking at dividing this up into 2 amendments or to sort of do it together, I think it makes sense to do it together. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Suppose.
No, really, please, it's like a curve, it starts slow and a bang.
You're right.
So that's really great news. I'm really happy with all the progress we're seeing right here. And I certainly will endorse on the basis of our CAO's endorsement to proceed with the recommendations. I really think it's a good move, and the sooner we get this in the pipe, the sooner we can start getting our developers interested and start expanding this.
Ms. Hurst?
Yeah, I echo my peers' comments, maybe 3 really quick comments, like 210 potential use, like that exceeded my expectations. I thought you're probably gonna land at like 70 or something like that. So that was a lot higher than what I thought. 2 other just comments. So we've seen the city of Guelph in that north of Mulkey area come up with very, very detailed long-term development plans, and just noticed MSD requirements, and that would be one that I'm just envisioning on that Mulkey Road. Whether that turns into like a commercial area, high density residential, what that impact would be south of Mulkey Road into the township. So again, it's maybe hard to like project that, but my only thought would be is as you go through this, just keep that in mind, because certainly my vision for the community is not an urban metropolis right to Aberfoyle type of thing.
I'm sorry?
Not to have an urban metropolis right to Aberfoyle type of thing. We need to keep that village community aspect of why people choose to live in the township. So I'll give that as just my perspective for things to take into consideration, but likewise, I'm very supportive forward.
Yeah, great work. For the new boundary of Aberfoyle, I would prefer to see it stay as initially proposed. If the province wants to change that because I want to give residents of Puslinch the opportunities for either retirement homes or development. And if it's the province mandate to negate that, then allow them to change the boundary, because I don't know that an urban hamlet boundary expansion is going to negate the access to the aggregate. They're going to go through their normal licensing process and studies, and I don't feel that that boundary is going to prevent that through a policy lens. So for opportunity, because also all of the natural features and different landowners, we don't know, as you stated, the potential. So again, prefer to stay in it unless there's something legislatively that says we shall not do that, or and I know you're in conversation with MNR. I feel what you're referencing is the Central Wellington boundary expansion. There was a piece of aggregate resource that you, that not you, county, whoever, I think we approved it, but delisted it off the mapping or something along those lines. And maybe that's the concern with MNR, but for me, I prefer to see the boundaries stay the same. And I'll actually ask my colleagues here. I would expect that you'll be able to report back as these conversations evolve for MNR. I don't know if you've been told already, thou shall not. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I would ask counselors if they can. I know it's kind of shooting from the hip here, but
I guess I just would, the rationale for excluding it is because of the natural heritage constraints, but also because of the aggregate, the mineral aggregate that is potentially present there.
Yes.
So
in combination, I think, just given the configuration of the lots, the fact that there are 4 different owners, they're irregular, the natural features, and then you have also the mineral aggregates.
So is the strategy then that by removing that, there are less potential roadblocks for approval? Is that the?
Well, in part through you, Mr. Chair, we're also, trying to put forward something that we feel would be supported by the policies that are in play. In the provincial policies in particular, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to make things easier if we can. Perhaps another option would be to I don't know if which boundary you might want to endorse, but if it can be subject to completing further analysis, and we to give us a little bit more I guess runway to look at it and talk to MNR, but as long as we can continue with whatever seems like the right way to go, yeah, we'll
Keep it in so that they can keep looking at it and report.
not sure how you want to word that, Courtney, but
While you work on that, what I would say
yes.
is that if you apply something to the center Wellington boundary expansion due to the mineral area, then that mirrors this expansion, because I don't wanna see where you keep the line the same in center Wellington, and then we move it down here. That to me isn't fair. So
Perhaps I could just expand on that. So they're the same, but they're different because the area in Center Wellington is employment area. And so it's the compatibility issues aren't the same. It might be possible for them to actually extract and then put an employment use in, or use the resource in construction. So, yeah, with the residential, it creates a little more of a consideration. Their area was probably smaller as well and more fragmented.
thank you, Debbie.
I have it, to you, Mr. Chair, here, it was to be inclusive of area, right? The boundary is what we, yes.
For further review or however we wanted to. Okay. Yeah. We're hearing is, Mr. Goy, is you're gonna still work on it, but it's a little bit new. The correspondence would have been ideal if MNR through the earlier process commented, which I really did not. We can keep it in. I'd like to keep it in. Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, I think it's wise to keep it in for now, subject to whatever things you do, but I do understand your concern that you want to have a smooth runway and have as few hitches as possible. So in that vein, would it be possible to sort of come back in July to say, look, we've done the analysis and definitely D is in or out type of thing?
Absolutely. If that would, we could come back on the 23rd. The 9th would be too tight.
And you can.
I think we can make that work. Yes. Yep.
If it doesn't work, then.
Yep.
That's one of it, is to add that to the motion then.
Thank you, because that does give us the time to kind of dig into it.
And also just your opinion on the cooperating with the county and going forward.
Oh, I completely agree. You've done a lot of legwork and it'd be a shame to have somebody start all over again. I don't see that as a very efficient way of doing it. We're gonna be getting our RFP out, getting solid support and all that. You're looking maybe 3 months down the road before we start, whereas within 3 months, you'll have it all wrapped up.
Yes.
I do too.
So first,
Supported, I got nothing else to add.
boundary thing, good, yeah, okay.
Read what I got? Sure. Okay. That correspondence item 10.1, have you received for information? And whereas council has previously requested policy changes regarding residential growth, such as the expansion of the boundaries of Agrifoil and changing the rural residential red state of March 1st, 2005. Therefore, that council endorse the recommendations outlined in the Wellington County Official Plan Review Phase 3B Rural Residential Growth Report. and that the recommendations outlined in the presentation, including the process steps and timelines to proceed with the Aberfoyle boundary expansion inclusive of Area D subject to further review, and to reset the rural residential severance date to May 1st, 2005. And the county planning staff report back regarding the feasibility of including Area D in the Aberfoyle boundary expansion at the July 23rd special council.
I'm gonna throw a wrench here. One of the common things we hear at land division is the size of these lots, and very much of the conversation is around making them smaller. And I know here in Porcelain, I mentioned this Thursday, is we have a lot of no, it's appropriate to say legal land uses by law enforcement. You know, you get a large parcel of land and it's not generally the person that severs it, but it's 2 or 3 iterations later, you know, and I don't know if there's any appetite, because I believe our minimum, I don't know if it's a minimum. It's a minimum 1 hectare for
0.4. 0.4 for a rural residential severance.
So that equates to an acre.
Minimum.
Guess it can't get much smaller than that. I don't know if we can bake that in more, make that a maximum. I don't know, you sound like you wanted to.
So through Mr. Chair, there is some wording in our bylaw that talks about if there are reduced lot sizes that are requested, that it's subject to a hydrogeological review to ensure the surfacing is acceptable.
And that's this through you, that's in the zoning bylaw, the official plan. Threshold is kind of for the same reason. There isn't an upper limit. So
Well, so that's working, that was if the applicant requests smaller, where I would like to see a maximum, or at least firmer language to that 1 acre, because especially with the tertiary septic systems, they're more efficient. Way back in the day, you had a standard septic, larger weeping bed. I feel, without being an expert, that we were able to fit a house in a, maybe an accessory building on a smaller lot, and this is a way of preserving farmland. And also hopefully reducing.
just, do you mind if I, for clarification, are you just speaking to the severance policies, or do you, I mean, when subdivisions come in, they tend to have, well, maybe we've had the tertiary treatment systems with smaller lots. I just haven't reviewed recent subdivision plans, so I don't know how that's playing out, but did you want it for both? Or
Smaller lots would be more density,
Yeah.
even for subdivision, it would all be, but I mean, I'm on a 1/4 acre, I severed it. My wife and I, 2009-ish. And we're 82 by 130, and we have a tertiary treatment system that was expensive back then, but it made us able to have a house there. So at the time, under the rules, 1/4 acre was able to support, the home. So I don't know, you look like you're, I can hear you breathing. I'm talking about your.
Mr. Chair, I think when we're talking about potential like illegal land uses, or maybe where we're not seeing the intended use, we're seeing it, to your point, in our, not in our rural areas. Not in the subdivision, so I think it's more of a concern for rural residential.
Yes, but I would be open to the conversation for this. I've had many people contact me, and they live in these estate. So I don't even like calling them estate subdivisions, but these large lots, and as they age, like, I don't wanna cut this grass. It's just a lot of maintenance, so initially it's, the curb appeal is fantastic, obviously, but as people's lives evolve, the maintenance is massive, so. In the interest of more density, I'll look at it. I'm not asking to rewrite what we've done, but.
I think that's something that we could potentially report back to you on in July as
Yeah,
well.
would council be okay with hearing that?
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with looking at smaller, but capping it, like putting a maximum on it, I think could potentially create more constraints than maybe we benefit from. I think certain lot severances, I know we've been through them before,
oh, we really only need a 1 acre severance, but we need to do a 2 acre severance because there is wetland that we have to have setback.
Yeah,
So the
fair,
building
fair.
envelope has to be, in order to make it a viable building lot, it had to be a bigger
Or a
setback.
flagpole shaped, you might need that long driveway that
Which
would put
is
you
not
over.
ideal, but,
I mean, yeah.
so I just. You know, I agree with looking at the potential for smaller, but putting a cap
Yeah.
on the 1 acre, I think might have some unintended consequences.
Maybe the.
We're certainly prepared to look at it. We can still cover off that issue. There actually used to be a maximum lot size. And again, it accounted for environmental features and allowed for it to go beyond that if there are certain constraints.
Doug, I agree with Councilor Boyd has said, because our land features could be rolling hills or whatever the case, it's not conducive to 1 acre lot type thing. The other thing too is a 1 acre lot, typically, the thing is you don't have to worry about doing a hydrology study. Once you get below that, or bylaw says you gotta do that, and that's unnecessary expense. And we do have lots in like for instance, the Morriston expansion, they're half an acre. So there are examples, and I think the developers these days would want to go with smaller lots, more larger lots, and I can see the appeal to a larger lot for somebody moving up to the country type.
Good discussion. I can support it. It's a review. Just adding to your workload. I just added to your workload.
I'm trying to decide where we ended with that. So would you still like us to look at that?
Yes, look at it. Not
Light
necessarily
touch
a
or-
cap,
Yeah.
a hard cap, but looking at lot size and ways to likely incentivize. So, well, first off, when Councilor Goyda said it was, you know, the building envelope, the permissive building envelope. Right, you could have 20 acres of what do they call those wetlands, provincially significant PSWs, you know, well, that shouldn't preclude you from your severance, but so there's probably some way to massage that, but this is, I feel is the time, because we're going to do this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't, work, but I'd like to hear. Do you want to read what we have?
So I've amended to include the potential, so an analysis, the feasibility of including area D in the agricultural boundary expansion, and the potential for a rural residential lot size maximum at the July 23rd special council meeting.
Maybe not maximum, because we heard we didn't really want a maximum, but no, not how you want to put it.
Most option, I mean,
Yeah, or most efficient land use or lot size, just a lot size review, rural severance lot size review. Does that work? Does that get?
We'll do our best.
I know, but it's. Will be 5 years or more before this gets looked at again, so. Take a quick look at it, great. Okay. We're gonna move for that, please. Councilor Goyda, Councilor Lewis, any last comments? All in favor? Gary, thanks again for the great work. All right. All right, so we're going to do our volunteer of the year award, and then we'll get to our last delegation. So there's Gail Race. Any here? Do we come up to the table here? I have a little Larabelle Reed. Welcome. Thank you for attending today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Let's read this for everybody's intelligence. Well, Gail has been a volunteer in the Pusquamish community for decades and continues to pass along a habit of volunteering to her daughters, and as they both now volunteer and attend the fall fair. It's a great community event. I participated in it as well, and it's our whole redevelopment there was focused around the tractor pull, which is a component of the fall fair. Some of your accolades are, as mentioned, the fall fair, volunteering with the Aberfoyle Agricultural Society for the last 35+ years. That's great. Organized the fair book, working at Chicken Barbecue, which was just last week, right? Thursday. Fundraising for the fall fair. Sold over 60 gowns for long-term care facilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's truly amazing. Member of the Ellis Chapel, responsible for bulletins, website, advertising for the chapel, assist with cleaning the chapel and its grounds. Work done by volunteers like Gail is essential in the Puslinch community and helps shape our identity as a township. So I'll just ask for maybe a round of applause for Gail. Well, it's always difficult to speak about yourself, but if there's any words you'd like to add, we'd appreciate you.
I'd just like to thank Barb Peggy for nominating me. When she approached me about the nomination, I was reluctant to put my name forward because I know of so many other people who spend a lot of time and effort volunteering. So I was honored to be asked, and then honored again when the selection committee chose me. I certainly don't volunteer to get the recognition. I get a lot of satisfaction out of what I do. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but I feel I get more out of the volunteering than I put in. And I also just wanted to say, none of my endeavors in volunteering are solo efforts. It's always as part of a group of like-minded individuals who are working towards a common goal. So I think the award is for them as much as it is for me, and for my family and friends who support me along the way and are always there with their advice and help, especially technical, whenever I need it. So thank you to everyone.
So, and again, thank you so much for everything you do. Pass it over. I'll come up in a second, but Councillor, go ahead. Want to say any words?
just thank you so much for all of your hard work and dedication to the township and to other causes in your life. And I think what's really great to see is being a role model, and sounds like your children are now stepping into volunteering as well. That's a really huge benefit. So just thank you very much.
This will show my age as well as my white hair, but I was a Girl Guide leader at least 1 year when you were in there.
Congratulations, thank you for volunteering, and thank you for reading the next generation volunteers. And certainly volunteers like you make the Puslinch truly a community.
Sirs?
Yeah, I echo my peers, Gail. I think when we read the bio of all the various things, it was very comprehensive, and it wasn't just one unique thing. It was like a host of things. So I think that to me was quite special, that it's choose to put your time and resources in a whole lot of things that are important, that touch a lot of different people in the community. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's a common denominator when we have these awards that they don't view themselves as deserving. It's, the neighbor, the other friend, and so we appreciate you coming in here today. And the true volunteers of the community are not looking for the headlines in the community. They're looking to give back and to support those fundamental organizations like the Fall Fair. So it's just wonderful. We do have a changing community, a lot of new people coming in, but we're seeing uptake. We're seeing people get involved, and it's people like yourself that they idolize, they want to mimic. So thank you again. I have an award here that we'll come up and take a picture. Now, should we go outside after for a picture with everybody involved, or?
Should we
Just-
put, I don't know what the weather looks like right now.
Oh, it's on, so maybe we'll pause the
Nice.
meeting briefly.
Take a brief recess then, just for about 5 minutes, for anyone online.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'll invite our next delegation down to the table, please. So a few words before you start. Please, that's for sure. Welcome back. Do you have anyone attending today in support of your delegation in the gallery?
Yes.
Yes. Are they aware that if they want to engage council, they need to be at the table? And
Yes.
okay, that's okay, perfect. And lastly, you're aware of, the procedure for delegations?
Yes.
Q and A,
Yes.
and to just stick to two topics that you've asked to delegate. Perfect. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Mayor and councilors and staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the safety study. And I can identify with what you said, Mr. Mayor, as you get older. It's not as much fun to cut grass.
Yes.
So that's what Paul Borum sometimes, or some local teenager that I recruit helps me with. The safety study. We agree with some things in the safety study and some that we don't, likely just the same as you folks. So the key part of that safety study is when he writes his summary. And he says there's two options. And he says in conclusion, quote, ultimately, either mitigation option is acceptable in the author's opinion. So I'll just read his two options. They're in your report. The southern swale could be reconstructed with a buried pipe system to reduce the safety concerns near the children's play area. Alternately, a vinyl coated black mesh or chain link hip fence or similar 3 foot plus minus in height could be installed along the children's play area's southern limit. I'm not going to repeat that. He says the same thing for the north side of the playground area. So he gives two options. So it really comes down to culverts versus fences. He says he's finds either one acceptable. So we have considered the pros and cons of each. And so my goal here today is just to try to present what experts say. I'm not an expert on parks or water or safety or anything like that at all. I don't think anybody is here. So really, we just draw from, and we try to select the top experts in park safety and in water safety and in health and so forth that are available in the province mostly, but even abroad. So to do a summary of culverts in comparison to fences, this is what we found. Culverts are safer, 100% safe actually, as they allow for a flat, stable grass surface. Number two, culverts are effective. The West End Township installed culverts prove that there's evidence of that. You installed culverts on the west 85 feet and they're working perfectly. I don't believe there was a study for that at all. It's just they were installed and took a day and a half. 3, culverts are less expensive. Please compare prices. 4, culverts require little or no maintenance. 5, culverts last far longer, 50 years or more. Culverts are barrier-free. They are not an obstacle. Those two terms, of course, are very important in Canadian playground safety regulations. Fences so close to a play area are dangerous and arguably non-compliant with the Canadian playground safety regulations. Number 7, culverts eliminate children's exposure to illness-causing pathogens associated with E. coli, West Nile disease. Wellington County checks for West Nile disease 3-4 times every summer. I've seen the person do that, and even Lyme disease now, which I'll speak about a little later. Fences will not protect children from the pathogens in the stormwater. And the last point, 8, culverts along the 2 sides of the playground area are the best option for drainage, health, and safety. And you have to, of course, make those all work together, as we know, and they can work together. It's not like they're incompatible with drainage and health and safety and so forth. So in the safety study, the parts that we agree with is 5.3 Roman numeral 3. This sign needs to be installed in the park about being sunrise to sunset. Most parks have a sign like that. Most parks have a sign that actually has about 10 to 12 rules for the park. And it's a sign that's only about this big. You'll see like Wall Falls Hills and opens about 24 inches by 50 or 18. We don't agree with that, we don't see it as necessary at all of installing a chain link fence around the whole southwest and north boundaries of the park at $40,000. In my 6 years there, and I know other neighbors that walk their dogs and so forth, we never see a child in those areas. They stay in the playground area or the basketball area. There's no point to go over to the farm to the west or to the other fields to the east, north. That would be really expensive and just unnecessary. It's almost like trying to fix something that's not broken. So yes, we do agree to signage at the rear northwest corner near the storm. Great, you could say danger. Teenagers do hang out there, so that's worth it. We are not in agreement with the 3-foot hip fence along the northern and southern limit of the play structure area, and I'll go into that in detail. That we feel is totally unadvisable, and it's a site inhibitor of the ditches and as an obstacle. It's an obstacle and it's a barrier. Yes, we agree with to remove those armor stones and so forth that shouldn't have been installed, but they are definitely, and I'm glad that the urban planner did reveal that they are a danger. Okay. I'd like to go to a couple recent letters that we received, one from Jim Sanders, who is the top expert in playground safety in Ontario. There's no question about that. So in it, he gave us information that showed that what we have just summarized to you about the culverts being much safer, less expensive, with little or no maintenance. Tested and proven by this township, because on the west side you did install them. And they're underground and they're working well. And of course, health. It's not just safety, it's health. And as I think you may have read in the letter I sent to you yesterday, there's a great increase of ticks and black-legged ticks and Lyme disease in Canada. It's gone from like just a couple hundred now to over 5,000. And it's a very serious illness. And so I'll speak to that at the very last. The lifespan, of course, 50 years. Fences are 15 to 20. And they also have a lot of other negative features. They collect a lot of litter. And if they're not maintained, they don't last 15 to 20 years. All the sites will say that. Visual, you have to have excellent visual lines to really comply with all the playground regulations. It's just really important that a parent can actually see their child at all times. And as many parents come to the park with a baby and a child to play. And she or he is very busy. And so the other day we saw a child, and I see this regularly. Who would want to play on grass when you can go in a ditch where there's mud and water? So he was on the north ditch. The mother went into the ditch cautiously to get him out. He's a boy. He's 3 of them. He ran across the playground and he went into the southern ditch near my place. He then ran the length of the ditch. It's all good fun. And so mom and him had a little chasing going on. And then when she tried to put him in the car, he ran across the road and he went through running through the ditches, not this way, like lengthwise, in the house across the road. Very dangerous. But it's typical because a 3-year-old doesn't have the sense of danger of water or of the ditches, but all organizations outline that water is a magnet for children. So it's a magnet, grass is not. So there are 2 letters that came in, And one is from Jim Sanders, who is the province's unquestionably most accomplished playground safety expert. The idea of a chain link, again, is an obstacle and barrier that creates sight impairment between a caregiver and the water in the drainage ditches. It is also a potential for injuries. As you know, children running, chasing each other, chasing pets and balls, and then potentially running into a fence in such a small play space, 150 feet by 50 feet, with potential for facial and head injuries, to me, is not a good option. And actually poor risk management. He goes on and says similar things, that in the regulations, it says attention shall be paid to supplying drainage during planning, renovation, and those specific periods when standing ponding water is present. Now, he is a member of the Ontario Parks Association. So if you have the credentials of a park safety inspector, you have an OPA. And that's a registered playground practitioner, an OPA after their names. He's not a general urban planner, an engineering firm, or a landscaping firm. He is a safety expert. He concluded when he looked at all the pictures, he says, this park was engineered, not designed. Very important point. So I'm going to go to, how many minutes do I have left, Mr.
I didn't start a timer.
I'll try to keep it short. He emphasizes again that a chain link fence provides a significant obstacle for response, not just for visual, but for response. How does a parent get over the other side of the fence? If they needed to rescue their child, which the woman needed to the other day from the ditch. Now, another source is Marnie Mason. She's one of our own residents. She's a CRSP.
What's that?
Okay, that's a Canadian Registered Safety Professional. So that's her credentials. She deals with these issues all the time, and she walks in the park every day because she walks her dog. So I'm going to read what she wrote. I think she sent it to you, or sent it to a couple of you anyway. Hi, Bruce. I had time to read the safety study, which I would not agree is a safety study, as it was not prepared by a certified safety professional. So I think she's saying basically, if you had a serious heart problem, would you go to your general practitioner or a cardiologist? I am a safety professional and have worked in the industry for years. The designation for a safety professional is CRSP, or Canadian Registered Safety Professional. I'm not sure what the scope of an urban planner would be, but I do not see the safety designation in this assessor's signature. A safety study identifies the hazards, presents the level of risk, high, medium, low, quotes the appropriate legislation or code, and makes recommendations to reduce risk. I would not make assumptions, as he did, about who uses the park, when, or for what. He also missed parking and children running onto the street. Don't know if you recall that we brought this up in the park meeting long ago, that's about 3 years ago. I saw it happen this week, mom putting kids into car. While she was putting the one into the car seat, the other ran across the street. She was so upset, of course, lucky no car was coming. He did not assess the culverts or Lake Arkell. No measurements or analysis or quoted code of slope and so forth. Just says that concerns have been raised. In addition, he did not include the fact that since the purpose of the swale is to distribute water, that this could be a drowning hazard, not just a slip, trip, and fall hazard. A fence on, and then she starts to use capitals, one side of the swale is not adequate to prevent a slip, trip, fall, or drowning. If anything, all sides should be fenced. So both sides of every north and south drainage ditch. Not that I think a fence is the solution. And to suggest that someone at the bottom of the swale could grab onto the fence to get out is also ridiculous. I have no idea where he got this from, but I don't know any safety professional that would state that in a report. Basically, he is saying that the fence is not preventing the slip, trip, fall, But if a child does fall into the swale, it might help him, her to get out. In caps, this is not prevention, and as an evaluator to suggest this is a grievous error. This is what you should focus on. If a fence is installed, it should be on all sides. The cost would escalate to 2 times proposed. Better to just install the culvert and fill. So those are 2 specialists in park safety. They're not generalists like urban planners and so forth. You've heard in the past, so I'm not going to go over it again, all the 15 authorities that we have contacted, and they responded about the dangers of the drainage ditches and also the solution of the culverts. And they have come from the County of Wellington, from the Disability Management Coordinator, who said they can be dangerous for children playing close to the edge and make it difficult for people with mobility and vision issues to move from one side of the park to another. So she used the word dangerous. You have the CNIB, you have the Easter Seals, with Life Saving Canada, with Parachute, which now I think you're familiar with. You have the American Academy of Pediatrics, you have Guelph. We contacted them to ask, like, well, how do you mix the 2? Because they have parks too with drainage ditches. Mississauga, Brampton, we looked at a lot of other policies and to see if we could learn. So I'll go to the last point, that's Lyme disease. In 2009, there was 144 cases in Canada. 15 years later, there's 5,239. I don't know what that increase is. That's too heavy a math for me. 144 to 5,239 in 15 years. And where is it found mostly in Wellington County? Cushland. This is the report from the Public Health Wellington Dufferin Guelph. These ticks can be found all over Ontario and the southern part of Wellington County, in brackets, Cushland, has been identified as a high-risk area. So these are black-legged ticks. And they often want to thrive in moist, wet areas. So it's sort of a new climate change result. And I'd just like to mention that it is serious. I lost a close friend to Lyme disease. It's in his obituary, if you ever wanted to read it. He was diagnosed in 2009. He died in 2014. He had just earned his doctorate from the University of Toronto. He was the moderator of a very large denomination in the United States, and he was a wonderful vocalist, and he leaves his wife and 2 children. But he obtained Lyme disease while he was in Southern Ontario. I worked with him. He worked for me or with me in Argentina, and I knew him well. So if a person thinks that there aren't a lot of hospitalizations or even deaths from Lyme disease, you're incorrect. I think other than that, we did find funds for the underground culverts and so forth from Employment Social Development Canada, at least that you could apply. And they underlined municipal governments because we sort of questioned it, and also underlined accessible playgrounds. You can apply for that. I've worked in Ottawa. Sometimes if you're not allowed to apply, you find a way to apply somewhere else. But they had stressed in 2 emails to us that yes, Cushland could apply for the monies for the culverts. Employment Social Development Canada, it's a federal fund. So other than that, one small point. Great picture, but the address says 38 Boreham Drive. That's my address. So if you want to donate the park to me, that's all right, but I'll that of course was, you remember last time it's talking March 20th, 2024, I did recommend that the park have an emergency number. That would eliminate that type of simple error. But I did like when I saw that, because I always like to own more land. But,
But not cut the grass, though, right?
no, I'll take your maintenance people and I want to say that they're doing a great job. They do a great job. It's a very consuming job now with more trees to water, to cut around and so forth. But they're doing their best. And the plants at the front need to be replaced or whatever, but you know, we don't have staff that just can take care of it like we take care of our properties, I expect. So I thank you for listening to our summary.
Yeah, thanks for delegating. I apologize for that error in the publication. We'll,
Not to
that's
worry.
corrected, and I hope that it didn't lead to people coming to your
Right.
address
Yeah.
uninvited.
Not at all.
but I'm not sure how that transpired, so.
Small thing.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your friend, contracting Lyme disease. It's a very real thing. I'm an outdoorsman. I've had, if I had to guess, 30, 40 ticks on me. I've been bitten by one black-legged tick.
Really?
I'm quite familiar with them. And you're right, the black-legged ones specifically have been moving north.
Yes.
There is a website that, it might be a little outdated now, but it shows where there's more concentrations of them. And
Yeah.
my father's property down the Gore Road is right in the spot they identify, and that's where I got the black-legged one, but, fortunately, they are everywhere.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, it's partially due to the lack of our hard winters.
Yes, it is.
They're not getting the kill off that
That's
they
true.
once
That's
used to.
That's true.
But I don't necessarily agree with your point that they live in wet areas. My understanding is long grasses because they have a term for
They
it.
live in both, I believe, and also birds transfer them to any area. And we have a lot of birds and ducks and geese that land in Oran Park. So yes, there are some areas, like some wooded areas, that actually are more prone to the development of black-legged
Long
ticks.
grasses.
Yeah, but also wet, moist areas and also birds that transfer.
Well, and that could be said, they could be anywhere, right? I mean, typically they're on tall grass, they got a term for it where they kind of reach out and they're waiting for an animal to walk by and brush the grass and they hitch a ride, but
yeah,
anyways, they are essentially everywhere. If you're outdoors, the likelihood of having a tick on you is pretty high. I would recommend learning to identify them.
Yes.
If I've had 30, I've had one black-legged. They're
Yes.
Is it the deer tick? I think is.
Well, that's the other word for it, deer tick, but there's different kinds of ticks and they don't all spread Lyme disease.
That's right.
But the point is that the park is a park that attracts a lot of animals. So they can be transferred very easily. My backyard doesn't have ducks and geese, and coyotes and so forth.
I still feel it's important that people learn how to identify, because if you have a black-legged tick, whether you get it from park or from anywhere else, it's important to know the difference in the species, and it's relatively easy. So
I would recommend that the photos that you see on Google, actually, when you just look at the different kinds of ticks, that the township educate the people that, Christmas is high risk. And here's what they look like. This is what their nests look like and so forth.
So, okay, do we have a recommendation?
Yes, it's to receive the delegation for information.
Are we moving up that report?
It has been moved up.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Justine mentioned, so can I get a number for that, please? Counselor Hurst, Counselor Spose, and we'll be dealing with the report immediately following this. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's 9.3.4. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I won't do any detailed review. The report is fairly straightforward in terms of the recommendations, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do you ever have the other recommendation?
Yes, it's that the report be received and that council direct staff to carry out the recommendations outlined in the report.
Mover, please. Spillis, Counselor Coeda. You move it? Sure. Thank you. All right, questions or comments from the CEO? Counselor Coeda.
I don't have any questions. I want to recognize that, we do have a delegate we did have a delegate that's very invested in this process. And I think that, that delegate has brought in some very diverse, other perspectives, differing professional opinions, different perspectives. And I think that that's welcome, and I think that's in part what has got us to this point that we're at here. But at the end of the day, I think that we could, we could debate about those external opinions forever and a day, right, who's wrong, and I don't think that's necessarily productive. I think that our approach has to be guided by the application of the expert advice from the professional that the township retained. That judgment is informed by observation and best practices. And that consultant has provided options with the overall arching goal of improving park safety, and is supported by balanced, practical approach to implement. And so I think Urban Mind is not only familiar with the site, but they're also accountable for the integrity of their recommendations. And so that's where the recommendations in this report have come from, and that's what I would say.
All right, I echo Councilor Goyette's comments. I have no further questions.
Sirs? Yeah, well said.
It was well said. Well, great job.
Well, I mean, it's been a discussion that has been ongoing, and it's important to the residents. And I think that, we need to, we need to receive that, and, it's important to get that feedback, but at the end of the day, I think we need to be responsible and follow the advice of our retained consultant, so.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think my only other question would be like timelines to work towards. But maybe that's still to be determined.
Want to give us a synopsis of what's going to transpire,
Yep, Mr. Chair, for sure. So in the report, it outlines the recommendations that were made by the consultant, and then where there were options or decisions that need to be made related to each recommendation. So what staff has done is looked at the estimated costing for each of those and what we would recommend in terms of timeline. So we are recommending that the majority of the signage that needs to be installed be done immediately. It comes at a very low cost. So we have some of those made already, which was great that we could get that done so quickly. And then as it relates to some of the larger projects, such as the hip fence, we have gotten some estimated costs, and we are looking at sort of end to summer for that. So the majority of the recommendations will be done in short order, with some of the work to be done by park staff in the fall. So that's sort of the removal of the stone and the caps on the culverts and those things. So we are looking to wrap up the rest, sort of this project this year. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would prefer not to see overruns assigned to the surplus by default. I think that the surplus should be dealt with at the end of the year, and with the balance in the parkland dedication fees, that if there's an overrun, that the money comes out of parkland dedication, because a lot of these costs were going to be there, if I'm not wrong. So I just don't want to get in the habit of assigning, cost to a surplus that we don't even know we have yet. And I know it won't be a lot, it'll probably be in the hundreds of dollars or something, but with the healthy parkland dedication reserve, I feel that's a more appropriate place for some cost overruns for this project. Delegate stated they're not supportive of fencing the entire park. I tend to agree with the delegate that we don't need to fence that entire property. And I believe the cost was 40,000 or something.
High level estimated cost.
Yes.
Could be more.
Could be
Yes.
more. So I don't know if you need direction on that or.
But I think that was to be considered as part of the parks master plan in any case. So
Yeah,
it's not
sure.
immediate.
So I would support the delegate in not doing that. But anyways, no, I think it's good work, and we can finally come to fruition on this subject and move on. So we have a mover second.
We do.
Any last comments? All in favor? That's carried.
Break.
I believe we're going to break. Return at 2. welcome back. So I thought you have a recommendation going to close.
Yes, the council shall go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on behalf of the municipality or board. And this is in relation to an advisory report regarding land use controls and the confidential minutes of a previous closed meeting.
Councilor Spillis, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? It's carried. Yep. Right, so I want to have some resolutions to take us out of close.
The council moves into open session at 2:17 p.m.
Move to that, please. Councilor Spillis, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Sure.
That council receives a confidential report regarding a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board. And that's in relation to an advisory report regarding land use controls. And the council received the minutes from the previous closed session and proceed as directed.
Councilor Hurst, you want to move that? Councilor Goida, second? Oh, you're out. Yeah, sorry. Just close. Right. Favor. Carried. All right. All right, on to consent. So reading the resolution, consent.
The consent agenda items listed for the June 18th, 2025 council meeting be received for information.
Move it, please. Councilor Goida, Councilor Spillis. Right, items being pulled out.
6.3 and 6.11.
Sorry, Councilor Goida, I skipped you.
I just, 6.13 I declared,
So we'll separate that one.
so otherwise, no.
Okay. We'll just see that one separately. Councilor Hurst?
6.2 and 6.3, they came up in the Q and A. So I think direction has been provided on those, but those are just on my list.
Okay, so we'll just still do 6.3. You're comfortable with that? Leaving 6.2 out. Okay. All right, so we'll receive the balance of those except for 6.13.
Like 6:13.
6.13.
Okay.
Yeah. So all in favor of receiving those, you're in on that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then can we receive 6.13, please, with a mover and second, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? That's done. All right, Councilor Spillis.
Yeah, 6.3 has to do with the Carver's introducing the Carbon Storage Act, and the question I asked is, can our hydrogeologists comment whether stratigraphy and posted for support carbon storage, and if so, would there be an impact on the groundwater? We rely on the groundwater, obviously, and anything like that that is posed, we should know in advance whether we have a problem or not, to get ahead of the way and defend our position why we can support the carbon storage.
So you can have the hydrogen guy look at it? Is that direction or is it just?
So through Mr. Chair, it is direction because it will be a budget impact that will be done, but
Moved by Councilor Spillis, second. Councilor Hurst, on this question?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Next, Councilor Spillis.
Yeah, it's to do with city council letter to Premier regarding illegal land use, and asked the question whether or not our map program would cover the south end. Forgot the fact that our map program wouldn't cover up anything under the Planning Act. So the request of City of Hamilton Council for province was to amend the Planning Act such that have additional teeth. So I put forward a motion basically that says, whereas the township council is in receipt of the township of Caledonia letter to Premier Ford dated July 4th, 2025, which includes, and I listed all the motions they had. And then I concluded by saying, whereas the township has some concerns be resolved, the township council supports the aforementioned motion. And this resolution be forwarded to Premier Ford, MPP, Joseph Rasinski and Abel, and in consultation with court, she basically said, and the opposition.
And MPP Ray, he's the PA to MMH, Mr. Black. Sorry, did you say the town of Caledon too? I'd like this.
Oh, sure,
that we're
yeah.
supporting their. I supported all the challenges, or most of the challenges they listed there, we encountered here as well, so I thought it was you know, worthy of supporting, so. He moves that motion, pay a second, please, Councilor Hurst. Comments, Councilor Goyder?
No, okay.
Yeah. Anything further? You good?
Got it, yeah.
All in favor? It's carried. There's. Let's put the pages here. Where, like, I just mixed up. Delegations, she's saying 6.2, or we're missing.
No, she's,
Oh, is this?
Did we have some?
Oh, he just mentioned it, but he
Yeah.
said it was done with through what Q&A.
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything beyond what was noted in the Q&A.
Right, so we have the PIM, Public Information Meeting, July 9th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Public information meeting held in person at the Pulsonish Community Center, 23 Brock Road, regarding phase 5 and 6 of Pulsonish by Design study. Okay. Development charges update 9.2.1, Mrs. Sand. I believe I didn't look at who's. Yep.
Good afternoon, Council. So this report is just an update on the development charges background study and our recommendations around that based on Council's direction at the September 3rd, 2024 Council meeting. And some information within the report just based on our discussions with staff as well as our traffic planning consultant. And some information regarding roads and development standards guidelines, which are some upcoming projects that we have in our capital budget and forecast, which will assist with updates to our 2024 DC background study. There's also some legislative timelines that are noted in the report and some upcoming master plans and studies that we have that will impact our DC update once they're completed as well. There's also further legislative changes to the act related to Bill 17. And so it's recommended that we wait until those updates are done as well in order to make sure that our new DC study or update study is in compliance with the latest legislative framework. I've also included in the report some of our provisions that are already included in our 2024 DC background study. We did include some provisions based on just some discussions with staff and some things that we knew that were on the horizon. And so those have also been discussed in the report. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any of Council's questions.
Give your recommendation, please.
The report FIN 2025-020 entitled Development Charges Update Be Received. The council directs staff to include a transportation master plan in the 2026 capital budget for council consideration. The council directs staff to initiate an update to the 2024 development charges background study in 2027, including incorporation of eligible capital projects and service levels based on upcoming master plans and studies as outlined.
Good mover, please. Splos, let's go enough. Splos.
I asked. You don't, okay. Just respect to the double layer type of thing, I made some suggestions that when they look at it, look at how long the current pavement has lasted for the one lift. And if it's last, say, 20 years, do we really need a double lift? And then the other issue is when you do a 2-layer lift, typically you should be looking at a different layer, different asphalt design for lower versus the top. Then how you combine the two? Common practice put a coat on to bind it, but there's other ways of doing it to increase the life. One technique is called the European method, but I don't know how prevalent that standard is here. So I asked those be included. Kind of thing, what you said. Yeah.
So if you, Mr. Chair, I just amended that motion I just read slightly to say, including the additions to the scope of work as outlined in item 6.1.3 council questions.
Great. So first, you could, all in favor? That's carried. Again, Mrs. Sam.
So the next report is just our quarterly financial report. Just for council's information, it discusses the first quarter, and it's similar to previous years where we've reported on the first quarter as well. So I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
So the motion is to receive the report for information.
Oh, kill it. Mayor, please. Mr. Willis, Councilor Goya. All right, questions for Mrs. Steele? Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Therefore, majority. Oh, might be good for me. I have baseball tonight. My wife's working and still school is in. I have a reasonable time, so I'm not going to keep the kids up.
Is that, thanks.
All right, welcome, Ms. Banks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So the purpose of this report today is that to provide council with an update on the Planning and Development Advisory Committee 2022 to 2026 goals and objectives, and to seek council's approval for the committee's recommendations regarding improvements to the minor variance process. So those recommendations were that staff consider reformatting the minor variance application form so that only the most basic and necessary information is requested for simple applications. Township staff should continue to refine the minor variance guide. We did update it in January of this year, so we could be updating that maybe in January in the following years. And the other recommendation was that the building department add more information to their section of the township website to encourage applicants to review the zoning bylaw and self-determine if their project is going to be in compliance or non-compliance with the zoning bylaw so that they can anticipate submitting a minor variance application. Happy to answer any questions.
You just say recommendation is presented.
Yep.
Freedom of thought, please. It's very much schools. Oh, yeah. Questions?
Oh, the two members who did this, they spent a long time and then went left and another one came on and did a lot of work. That 51 questionnaires about 90 slides and analyzed and parsed out the recommendations.
It's first. You may know already, but Bill 17.5 are proposing or received royal assent that they're going to give 10% as a right of the variance for minor variance for setbacks and certain. So we may, as a committee, want to take a look at that. Just be aware of it, that right to a 10% encroachment of a setback could be coming through the.
Well, if it's as of right, you come to the anything.
I don't know how that's gonna work, whether they'll have to come, those, I think those details still work out.
So through Mr. Chair, we are preparing to bring an information report to council. Staff will suggest to review these legislative changes just so that we can understand what those impacts are.
I would like to increase our setbacks by 10%. And when they get that as a break. That work? Joking. Okay, we have to move in a second. Anything further? Carried. 9.3.2. Join this. Thanks, Lynn. Bye, Lynn. She did not waste any time.
She's out. Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction as it relates to the objection to the notice of intention to designate for 86 Farnham Road. How to proceed with that designation of the property to affirm the designation or withdraw the designation.
So the recommendations in the report, can I get over 30 seconds to discuss it? Mr. Wilson, Mr. Hurst. Everyone discuss it. Good.
Sure, I just think in this case. This might objected to. I do have strong knowledge and understand why it's important, problems with cultural significance. But I do also think that it's important that owners have a say, and especially in this case, where it's extremely well cared for. As far as I'm concerned, not in any neglected or demolished. I can't support the city.
I can't support the city as well. There's a letter that outlines all the renovations they've done to it, so it's always seeing they're gonna continue to live. Place and they're not going to, entertain any demolition, so I don't think there's any danger of, this home, falling by the wayside.
And Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, you know, I think good points. If maybe I can share some of the discussion points from the Heritage Advisory Committee. This one was a bit different than some of the other properties that had come before us, before council, I should say. They were more on the concession one area. And the discussion at the Heritage Committee and why it was encouraged to come with council and not addressed there was the feeling was that it was unique to the Arkle area. One of the only buildings in that particular area. No doubt that the property was well maintained, meticulously maintained. But it also was in a geographical area where land development is much more prevalent. In that area, it felt that it was a situation where the Heritage Advisory Committee wanted to recommend and council make a decision on it because it was a very unique circumstance and one that hadn't been encountered by the advisory committee to date as compared to the previous properties that come from council. I completely understand and I respect the comments that both of my council peers have stated around the homeowner, and there's precedent there. The previous homeowners that have rejected have been pulled from the process, but we felt it was unique enough that it needed to be updated. So I'll leave my comments there. Just working through some procedural stuff here.
Through Mr. Chair, sorry, well, the motion that's in the report does provide an option for council, either to affirm or withdraw. So in order to have it properly tabled here for council, we need to make a decision because when you vote, it's going to be, the vote is either to affirm or to withdraw. So maybe that is the first point of discussion.
I will get to that.
Sure.
I'm gonna put Laura on the spot here. What were generally the concerns from the homeowner? And I think it's in the report, the attributes, the red brick, but what were the concerns of the landlord for not wanting designation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, myself and Sarah met with the property owners last week to kind of go over their main concerns. Their biggest issues were one related to why the designation's on the property as opposed to the structure, which I feel like has been something that's come up. And that's part of why now on the schedule to the designation bylaw, we have the little red rectangle around the exact structure that's designated, and that it's, yes, registered on title on the whole property, but we're most focused on what those description of heritage attributes are. The second was questions around severances and what their options would be on if they could sever in the future. And then the third was questions around if the barn was included in the statement or not. And we didn't put any sort of specific description of attributes on the barn in the statement. There's a little bit of snippets above, but not necessarily on the description of attributes, so that doesn't hinder what their designation will be going forward. They could make changes to the barn without going through.
Okay, so what we need is direction from one of the peers to make the motion that designate a firm or sorry.
Firm or withdraw.
You need to get one of those two terms out of the resolution. Councilor Hurst, would you mind?
Yeah, so I think this one was a much more difficult decision from my standpoint than the prior properties, and I think for me, it very much came down to geographical proximity of the property in regards to development activity in the area. But I also weigh the prior decisions that this council has made. I think we need to honor the degree of consistency, so my recommendation would be to, if I can get the term right, to pull it from the designation proceeds.
Okay, a second. So listen, good, so if you vote in favor, you're voting to not affirm it. Clear? Any last moments? All in favor? Clear. Is 923, correct?
Reports there tonight.
What plan update?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair, this is, council sees regularly, it's just an update, you'll see the most up-to-date spreadsheet is attached, it's also provided in your share folder, it's easier to navigate with the Excel. Happy to answer any questions, or if there's any changes to work plan items, things like that, nice to have an opportunity for council to review, provide feedback. So it's to receive for information.
Motion please, Mr. Hurst, Mr. Spillis, any questions on the work?
One quick one. I noticed on the work plan is the asset management and update. And I don't entirely remember what that entails. It's redoing the asset management or updating the asset management plan. It's just in terms of updating the actual assets and the costs associated with them. Or if it's more in depth than that. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because I do know that Councillor Bailey at one point in time had brought up the idea of natural assets. And I don't exactly remember where we landed on that, but I thought maybe there's going to be some discussion with conservation authorities about how to go about doing that. And I just was wondering if, in the absence of Councillor Bailey, and to keep that initiative going, if at least that's something that can be looked at when the time comes to work on that project.
Mr. Chair, we can keep that in mind for sure. I do know there was discussion both with our DC consultant too, when we were looking at assets and things like that, but we've also had a recommendation from our planning consultant around how that's being captured already, but we can go back and review it and make sure we haven't done anything with the as we're going through them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the respect they asked the membership, and we're supposedly having a meeting on the strategy for building up to the zone.
Yeah. Dear Mr. Chair, the Director of Finance and myself we've been working on that for the past little while. And we were hoping to get in front of council in September, sort of leading into the budget cycle.
I'm good, thanks.
Favor? Carried. Correspondence, 10.1. Can I get a mover, a seconder to receive that for information, please? Spillis, Council first, comments, questions, Council Gordon? Yep. Okay, Spillis?
I'm good too.
First, skipping the council part. Same time. I have a comment. I submitted last night from my personal account, and my comment to them was that they had to ensure that the regrind and excess fill does not end up dumped in Ocean. I would appreciate council endorsing township sending a letter to the link and any other appropriate contacts. Remember what we encountered on property here, bringing in fill. Remember, serves me right. The MTO has a policy that the trucking company had to ensure that they had a legal site to dump, and then well, that trucking company owned some land, and there was a little bit of a loophole there. So if staff would submit comments around our concerns of the excess filled and regrind produced from this project. So just.
Sure, I'll move that.
And secondly, part of me want to say, could they not do the EA for the balance of the 401 that isn't done, which is Pussage, but. Your experience, that would be too much of an undertaking, taking that large project, but. Yeah, once they're done this, the only part that will be left is Pussage. Oh, that was the other thing that caught my attention is they have. Grading scale for traffic and it went from A to F. And the section that they're studying right now is currently at an E, which is what's the second lowest, which means basically what it means is that it's a intolerable amount of delay for the commuter. I'd be curious, I would like staff to reach out. It's either LOS scale or something, it's in the report, and find out what the section of the 401 between the sixes is classified as. And it's not ACON, it would be MTO.
You just repeat exactly.
No, no way I'll get it exactly. I'd like staff to reach out to MTO, try to find out the traffic classification. It's near the end of the order here. Sorry, just bear with me. Maybe should be. Yes, the target level of service for the studied section of 401 is LOS or D or better. And for this correspondence, the LOS is E. So we're going to request from MTO the level of service.
Target level of service for
401 between Highway 6 South and Highway 6. So yes, so you're typing away. Level A is free flow, level B is stable flow, level C is stable flow, acceptable delays. Level D, approaching unstable flow, tolerable delays. Level E, which is this section they're studying, unstable flow, intolerable delay. And level F was service forced flow, congested in queues, failed to clear. So just another tool in our toolbox for our advocacy for the bypass.
I'll make the equivalent B.
Right?
I'll make the equivalent B. F.
Yeah, F for fail. So, but that's the first time I've caught something in there, so. I think that's all I had. I don't believe we had any concerns. They propose different offsetting it, but it's not in our township, so we're good. All right, we captured that, okay.
Yes, so in addition to receiving it for information, the council directs staff to comment on the ERO requesting that the province ensure the proper disposal of asphalt grindings and other excess fill during the project, and that should disposal occur in the township, that it be permitted properly through the township's bylaw and permitting processes. And the council directs staff to contact the MTO to determine the target level of service for the 401 between Highway 6 North and Highway 6 South.
You don't wanna, but their target level will be free flow traffic. I wanna know what their existing LOS designation is, or however you word that.
Existing what did you call it? LOS?
Yeah, that's the abbreviation.
Level of service, not target. I got it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm worried, they're like, well, we'd love to have
Okay.
free flowing traffic. Thanks. Wouldn't we all?
We all.
Yeah, well, we were on the economic tour for the county and we came across concession 7 in the 401 eastbound, 9:30, bumper to bumper, not moving, so. Okay, so we have moved second for that.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. We did. Yep, we did 10-2 with Karen.
3.
3, sweet.
Sorry, 10-2 is, sorry, no, we didn't, right? 10-3 we did, but 10-2 we haven't done.
Oh, 10-2, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Similar. We'll just receive that for information.
That's the recommendation, yes.
I can move that, please. Suppose Councilor Goyette, all in favor? It's carried. We did 10-4. 10-5.
10-5.
Okay, any more to second? Okay, you see that. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Courtney, I assume you're gonna bring this back, results of Bill 17, the holiday impacts.
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, we plan on bringing your report back.
And I saw the Q and A last night, and I emailed Jameson before the meeting, asked him he had sent or prepared a report for county planning on Bill 17 impacts. So I had him send it to me this morning. I forwarded it to yourselves and the CAO for information, so that should be in your box. Additional reading, so we get movers.
We did.
Any other questions on that? All in favor? It's carried. Council reports, mayor's updates. Well, we did, as I mentioned a moment ago, we did the economic development tour and we visited 3 businesses in Lunch. We went to the Morrison Medical Clinic just as an exterior visit. They were recipient of a CIP grant for some landscaping. Then we went to Let It Be Halo Therapy. Christine's one person there. It's getting busier. It's nice to see. Great little facility. And we also visited Reunion. Met the owner there and their story. Shouldn't share their story. Take that opportunity if that represents itself. But toured the old Embers restaurant and the new owners have done some upgrades to the patio. It's all, and they were very appreciative of support they received from the township and the county. In all, I thought it was a good tour. Laura met us on site. Some feedback we received was from Christina at Halo is that people don't know where Morriston is. And so hopefully the county ec dev folks took that as a takeaway. They can push out through their social media and whatever to get Morrison on the map. What did the Reunion guys say? I think traffic was a common thing, but parking signage. I know we've asked for MTO, but parking. I'd like to follow up with the county if there's, I don't know, if we can look at the parking, see if you have any ideas at some point, signage, because I believe there's parking close by. Up 36, County Road 36, there's boulevard parking. I know when, like how far we to walk to Queens Park. You know, you don't necessarily have to park in front of the restaurant. It's, you know, a 2-3 minute walk, so. We can do that, and then I submitted a notice of motion to the county last week. And my notice of motion, I worked with CAO on it, and I'm asking for them to do costing on the repainting of Brock Road. To a similar configuration of County Road 124 that was just recently reconstructed. To 1 lane, turn lane in the middle. And also to report back on if the ASE money is eligible to be used for that. And so that, because strategically, so propose a notice of motion at the end of this month. And then the next meeting for the county is September. So that gives 2 months for people to formulate their thoughts and hopefully I do know that there's some advocacy to get the road diet study done by the county. And if you recall, I don't remember if Councillor Bourne was here at the county at the time, but with the mid-block interchange going in and our advocacy for a walkable community in Aberfoyle, we asked the county to do a study on the diet and essentially came back, well, not until the bypass is in the mid-block and a bunch of other criteria. Well, Councillor Bulmer, I believe, has been advocating to have that study done earlier, but I wanted to see the costing of just, anybody seen the Alvin Iverson clip where he says, we're talking about practice, what I'm talking about is paint. I think there was a misconception out there that I was advocating on the council's behalf for new curbs and very expensive capital project. What we're talking about is paint. Change the lines, see how it goes. There's also, you've seen the reports of the amount of tickets still in Aberfoyle. Did you know 850,000 vehicle trips since January 15th till roughly current day through Aberfoyle? You can do the math on the population of Wellington County, it's all out of towners. So if we want to reduce the amount of tickets of people coming to our community to either spend money or do tourism or visit family, a good way to do that is to get it down to 1 lane each way. So that was part of the justification in the motion. So I look forward to those discussions at the county level, but I really wanted that costing ahead of the full-on road study, hiring a consultant. Because maybe there's support for the repainting without doing a costly taxpayer funded study. Because it is just paint, but we could put it back in simple terms. Queens Park visit. So do you want to speak to that? Because you would probably do a much better job than I would.
So, through Mr. Chair, the Queens Park visit was organized by, the, Township of Mapleton. So it was really their mayor and their CEO that were spearheading that on behalf of the member municipalities. It was wonderful. So we met to sort of get a list of what we thought our key topics could be, and then made those requests to meet with the ministers or the minister's staff, within one day. So the township put forward a number of our issues. It was very similar to what we would have done with our emo delegations and things like that. And we were actually able to talk for most of them. Some other municipalities participated with some of them because they had similar concerns. And in general, we got about 30 minutes FaceTime with each minister, which is a lot more than we would get at any of our delegations at the conferences. So it was something that I think everybody found a lot of value in, and we're hoping to do it on an annual basis. It was particularly interesting to meet with the Minister of Red Tape Reduction and to hear what they're trying to do. As well as I think we had 45 minutes with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to talk a lot about some of the legislative changes that we're seeing to the Planning Act. So it was just a very worthwhile day, and we were able to bring a lot of our concerns forward, and they said they were taking those away, and some of them would result in meetings and things like that.
Yeah, so it went well. It was a long day, but it was good. So I think that's generally it. So, and do we do mayors and councilors? Anything you'll move to second or receive that? It's good enough. It's rehearsed. All in favor? It's carried. Great bylaws.
So we are just removing the one bylaw regarding the 12.1.3, but we can also take out WDD and do that one separately as well. So the heritage designations coming off the list, and then
We'll just.
You would have had-
Okay. Counselor, go ahead.
so we're just gonna say,
It only is declared that.
I'll add it. I can add it, sure.
Mine, Counselor, go ahead, please.
Sorry, this is 12.1.4, doing it separately.
We're gonna do all the bylaws at once, because Mayor Silly's gonna declare. Yeah. So that the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed on from council. Bylaw 2025-060, being a bylaw to appoint a drinking water source protection risk management inspector and risk management official for the corporation of the Township of Pleasant, and to repeal bylaw 58-2017. Bylaw 2025-061, being a bylaw to appoint an interim deputy clerk. Bylaw 2025-063, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 23-18 as amended pursuant to section 34 and 36 of the Planning Act.
Great, we need to move right, so. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Any announcements? Closed session. We're gonna get you home in time, councilors. Much appreciated. Any business arising from the closed session? No motion. Any business? Purgatory bylaw.
Following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2025-064, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of Township of Pleasant at its meeting held on the 18th day of June 2025.
Move it, please, Mr. Hurst, Mr. Lewis, all in favor? It's carried and adjourned. Well, to the 2:55.
Council hereby adjourns at 2:55.
Any mover, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Grayson, in favor? Oh, anyway.